everyone, and welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike.
I'm Landon.
I'm Kason.
Today, we're going to be, well, since next week is E3, well, it's next Wednesdays when it starts, so we'll have another podcast before then, but I probably won't be here for that because I'll be traveling to go to E3. I'm going to be there. So we're going to do some E3 predictions this week, talk a little bit about it. We attended last year, so we're experts on E3. We're going to talk about all the stuff that's going to be there.
Now you can go there and be like, oh, last time? They had...
Anyways, so... oh, yeah. If there's anything you guys want me to try out that you know is going to be there, let me know in the comments so that I can go check out a game you're interested in and give you some...
That is not virtual reality.
because FF7 remake.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder
how
reality
much...
is like, that's a whole day of E3.
I really wonder how much virtual reality they'll have there. Anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Since sales dropped, but... okay, we're also going to comment on something that Jim Ryan, who is the head of global sales and marketing, something he talked about in terms to backward compatibility on PlayStation systems. Very weird comment that a guy in that position would make about it. So I think it's an interesting place to start a discussion about the preservation of old games and how important that really is and stuff like that. Then we get to some questions that you guys asked. We have Ojo Cinco.
Nice.
Wants to know our opinions. Maybe it's Ojo Cinco. Wants to know our opinions on the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles series. Good question. It's not something I've ever talked about on this channel, I think. William Diaz wants to know what our favorite video games lore or storylines are. Ace C. What do we feel the most overrated RPG is and why? We'll get into that a little bit.
It's been a while since we talked about that.
We might rephrase the question a bit, but we'll answer that one for you. Freaking glasses. Juan Soto. He watched an old walkthrough I did for Final Fantasy VII that's still on the channel, and he knows that I said I'm not doing it ever again. But if we had infinite time and resources and a hard drive that won't crash and lose all your saves, to make a canonical walkthrough guide of a game, which would it be? Okay, so
there we go.
Let's get started with this E3 talk. So E3 is awesome. We went last year and it was a freaking great time.
Yeah,
I loved going to it.
This year's going to be different because this is the first year that they've straight to the public been selling tickets. So it's hard to believe they could fit more people because like the fire marshal only allows so many people in, right?
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't think they could have that many more people in than were in last year.
Yeah, like are they going to extend their hours? What are they going to do? That's going to it's probably going to be the same number of people, right?
I would hope that it's the same number of people. It's just that like anyone could buy a ticket to get in versus like having to have some kind of invitation from press or from one of the vendors or something like that.
Which means a lot less people who were invited will be there.
Yeah, and
so
more
people that were there last year wouldn't necessarily be there this year.
Yeah,
I have to say though, I was surprised at some of the people that we met.
I agree.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I thought it was. I really up until last year thought it was just press showing.
Yeah,
but then you talk a lot of YouTubers.
There's
we
a
were
lot of YouTubers. Some people that they do YouTube, but you know it's on the extreme kind of.
They're very
very hobbyist. Yeah, like a couple dozen subscribers or whatever. So like, I think most people could get that kind of YouTube channel up and going fairly quickly with just a group of friends and family.
It's just a matter of finding someone who will invite you to eat.
But there were some people that were there, and it was like it didn't seem like they knew anything, and they
somehow they were.
I don't know. There were some funny discussions that we heard people specifically when we were waiting in line the first morning to get in. Which, by the way, that line was so long we didn't even realize how long that line was.
Terribly long.
It had wrapped and
and then they combined it, and
then they merged two.
Yeah, because everyone in the back of our line merged in front of us. It was the weirdest.
Well, because the security was like, you can't stand here. Go to the front of the line.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy. But the people who were in the line behind us were hating all over Persona, man.
Oh yeah,
that's just Persona hate.
That's right.
So
Persona and a few other kind of ridiculous things. But they were, I swear, they were high schoolers, I think.
I couldn't.
It seemed like they were young people.
Nothing against high schoolers, but I was just surprised when we got there. That was like, dude,
well,
if I was in high school and I could have gone to E3.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Jeez.
Jeez. Madness.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how different the crowd is and what the atmosphere is like. But
okay, so I have to say one thing that is not going to be at E3 that we learned about today is a Switch Pokemon mainline game.
They announced Pokemon.
That's going to be at E3?
No.
Pokemon Sun and Moon, like
Ultra Sun and
Ultra
Ultra Moon.
But not...
Those are going to be on the
Switch
3DS.
version.
Yeah. So it's going to be at least another year before there's a Nintendo... Or a Pokemon mainline game on the Switch.
Unless they do something weird. But the E3 would be the time to do that. And they kind of...
Supposedly Pokemon announcements are never made at E3.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know...
Policy.
I expect Nintendo... See, after last year what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild, I feel like it's just going to be like Splatoon and Mario Odyssey, and that's basically...
Yeah,
and then
they
they'll
don't
have Treehouse
to oversaturate their environment there.
Yeah.
Simplifying it, at least on Nintendo's end.
They are going to have an ARMS tournament and a Splatoon tournament, and they just announced a Pumpkin tournament, because Pumpkin Deluxe is coming to the Switch, which is cool. I don't know that sold particularly well.
I don't know how that's sold. Hori made like a arcade stick for Pokemon for the Wii U.
Oh, really?
They sold enough to make one of those. I don't know. How many of those they sold? Is that really better for fighting games, playing that arcade style?
Apparently it is, yeah.
Jeez. I can't wrap my head around that.
I think the sticks on it, on them are not like...
Well, they're more directional,
like
right?
the 8...
Yeah,
Like
you can feel it's like driving a car or something.
So you got a diagonal on that one, and it's like a little bit easier to know.
And I guess you have more fine control versus the thumb. You move it a 1/4 inch, and you're all the way to the edge, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on a stick, it's like
then you got the 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Yeah, the Sega.
I don't know.
Sega control.
I've never gotten into fighting games enough besides Smash Brothers to like develop a preference that way. Like,
well, it's because it's not a fighting game, don't you know?
It's
not a fighting game. It's a brawler.
It's a brawler.
Oh, crap.
It's a party game mostly.
Oh, it's a party game. It's like Mario Kart.
It's not for real pros.
Anyways. Okay. Sony is saying that they've got some big like Japanese game news for E3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Usually the thing is Japanese games you already know about
America,
before
right? Yeah,
like you've known about it for like a year.
We're gonna
they
go
usually come out in
to
Japan
Los
first.
Angeles to announce a bunch of games that are coming out in Japan.
Yeah,
that will not come to North America.
Sense.
They better come to North America.
They probably will be talking
about. It's a big.
No problem. I don't know unless they.
That'd be hilarious if they come out to their press conference like the day before E3 and they're all just speaking Japanese and there's like 10 Japanese reporters that are like, and they're just treating it like a Japanese press conference.
For Japan. Well, if it was a Vita conference, I could see them doing that.
Yeah,
let's just talk to you guys in Japan here.
You know, if they made a new Vita 2, PSP3 thing, and then they only sold it in Japan, like, that's not a terrible strategy, actually. At this point,
that's true, huh?
I don't know what that's going to be.
So, in terms of like predictions, what we think we might see there, normally I would want to say that we will see an announcement of some kind for a Metroid game. Yeah. Here's the thing with their recent history at E3, though. They haven't wanted to talk about things that are not coming out within that same year.
Yeah.
They usually don't want to do that. So the only way that they could do this is if they were maybe going to surprise announce that Metroid will come out early 2018.
Yeah, if it was coming out, before the next E3.
But not not next holiday or something like that, right?
Because, Nintendo is having a hard time producing enough Switches right now. Right. So I don't know how much it benefits them, at least in the short term, to announce another game for this year based on their supply. They can't
demand.
Yeah, people are still lining up for Switches in Japan, so...
There's a specific part on the Nintendo Switch that apparently Apple has been buying up like crazy.
It's the Flash.
And Nintendo's trying to like compete with them and buy enough for them to make more Switches. And Apple is, of course, a 10, how much 100 times bigger of a company than Nintendo.
Probably.
And so they're like just dominating, and Nintendo's trying to secure their
if you're the factory and someone comes in like, we want like $1 million, I don't know. Yeah. Well, or more, because like when an iPhone comes out, I mean, we were talking like tens of millions. Oh yeah, like Nintendo. Yeah,
Nintendo's like
$1 million of these.
Apple's like, I need 50 million.
Like 50 million, and they're like, well, okay, that's like a, that's a better deal for us.
We're prioritizing that.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but that is playing a part in Nintendo's Switch shortage.
And cloud computing, apparently, there's more demand for that type of memory on servers now, and so, anyways, there aren't enough like factories for this crap.
Right.
So. Or Nintendo of all the years. It had to be like the anniversary year for the iPhone when they're going to do something crazy and probably sell a lot of them. But anyways, that would be... on the point of Metroid, though, I think that it definitely wouldn't be
the thing that this year. I think also that they have such a strong lineup for the second half of the year already.
Totally,
that it wouldn't make any sense to release a Metroid game. Well, even if it could be ready in that time frame, but to talk about it, just to congest the number of announcements they have, because they'll be talking about Splatoon 2 and Mario Odyssey is like their premier
That's
things.
The big thing.
But they've also got Xenoblade 2, and they've got a Fire Emblem Warriors game, and they've got... I mean, there's like a long list of games that they have coming out here in the next year. So I don't think Metroid will have any appearance whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think we'll just get what we already know is coming from Nintendo, more details about it. Maybe they'll announce a few of those 80, apparently, video games that are in development right now for the Switch from third parties or whatever.
Right.
But like the ones that are coming out this year, they'll announce maybe some new, smaller, either indie or even like small, like, I don't know, something from Sega and something for whatever that they're working on. They haven't announced yet. But nothing that bleeds into next year, I don't think.
You're going to get there, and it's just going to be Yooka-Laylee on Switch and Sonic Forces or whatever it's called. And that's all Nintendo's going to have people to play.
That'll be it. And it will be a good E3.
Okay, so let's maybe break it down by company. What do we expect Square Enix to potentially announce?
Well, Project Octopath, that's a 2018, right?
I don't know.
But it's, how long is it? Well, I guess it's only since January that they revealed that one, right? So they probably won't have anything there. That's a little too far.
It is Square Enix. They show.
However, their new,
very different.
their new Lost Sphere thing.
Okay.
Like they just showed a trailer for that, but they may have some of that
because that'll be come out early 2018.
Yeah, early 2018. Yeah. Right? And Square announces stuff years ahead of time, anyways. So it's not like they're doing what Nintendo does.
Last time.
But this will be the last E3 before Lost Sphere comes out.
Last time, I Am Setsuna was like a July release, and so they had the demo for I Am Setsuna. That was just a month before the game was done.
That's right. That's right.
They probably won't have anything for that one, right? I mean, that's just
Lost Sphere.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be out before next E3. But as far as a playable demo, you're probably right. We likely won't be able to play the game.
Dude, do you remember Square Enix had those like? They weren't playable, but demos of like Brave Exvius.
Oh yeah, they had an iPad thing, and you could go.
Mobius.
Yeah, I do remember. Go play those games, and no one was there.
No one was in line.
Everyone was in the Kingdom Hearts or the Final Fantasy 15 line.
They had the Heaven's Ward Final Fantasy 14 expansion that a bunch of people were playing.
That's right.
I found the bag I got for that, by the way.
Oh
yeah. I've still got that bag. I don't know what to do with the giant bag.
Big one, right? It's like a shopping bag.
The Final Fantasy 15 demo was long lines, and then they had the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 demos. Those got the most attention.
They had Final Fantasy
12 Zodiac Age. That was pretty quiet.
Yeah, not too many people.
They'll probably have another one for that because that comes out next month.
Yeah,
because that's July, so they'll probably.
And then right on the other side, they had the new Deus Ex game.
Deus Ex,
which we didn't.
We didn't try that out, but they had Star Ocean 5, and they had Dragon Quest Builders, and they had...
That's right, Builders.
There you go, Dragon Quest 11.
Dragon Quest 11 will be
massive Dragon Quest 11.
I wonder, though, because there's no announcement for its localization at all. So I actually am curious about that.
Because it would be in Japanese.
Right, that's a good point.
They might not have that at all.
How delayed could that localization possibly be, though? I mean, how delayed could that be?
I don't know, man.
I would have to say, like, a holiday release for that should still be plausible at this point.
I would freaking hope so. I want to play that game bad, dude. I want to play that game.
I mean, it's July in Japan. That's plenty of time.
Yeah. I think that Square Enix will have a trailer, a video trailer, for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
They better.
They will not
and Kingdom Hearts
announce
3.
a date for release.
No.
And they will not have a playable demo. So we will still be in the dark as to when it's coming out, but we will probably hear Sephiroth's voice and Cloud's voice in it, I think, because both of those actors have confirmed that they are returning, and Steve Burton at least sent out a tweet that he was
a month or two ago
in LA doing some recording for it.
Yeah.
So I would think
so either that was the game recording, which I don't think the game's there yet, or it was just for the trailer, which is more likely because the game is not ready for that.
Yeah.
Like post-production.
What I think they would do. Let's account for worst case scenario here in that they have not made as much progress as they'd like, or CyberConnect 2 was going in a direction they didn't like.
They screwed it up. They accidentally made a Final Fantasy 9 remake.
And so like, wait, what? This call for all this hiring that they did recently, right, is like a desperation attempt to get it on the right track. Let's assume that it's the worst case scenario. I still think what would be the smartest thing to do if you're not going to have a gameplay trailer or any kind of demo or anything for people to look at is to release a trailer that keeps people excited about it, that shows new characters that haven't been showed yet. I think showing Tifa and showing Aerith as like a final screen, like he wakes up in the church and sees her face or something like that.
Yeah, still early.
Just show her chin down. Keep it.
There you go.
That's Who knows what she looks like,
children
man.
did that at first. Yeah.
And maybe showing Sephiroth and some dialogue between Cloud and Sephiroth or something.
You know what?
This is a good idea.
This is one of the things people fault Nomura with a little bit, especially when it came to Kingdom Hearts 2 and later stuff. But he makes cutscenes. Cutscene after cutscene. It's just conceptual. He's just and same thing with Final Fantasy Versus 13. Yeah. It's like these sweet cutscenes, this awesome design, but really no like game yet to supplement it. But this awesome cutscenes. So if nothing else, Nomura has cutscenes of Final Fantasy VII Remake like done and ready to go.
They could do a really abstract Final Fantasy VII trailer in the vein of like the Omen.
Oh, the
Final
Omen
Fantasy
trailer.
15 trailer.
And Nomura does that too, so that would be perfect.
He'll be on the motorcycle falling. Like
all of a sudden he's riding on water.
The street will just like ripple into water.
Yeah.
It'll fall through the street. It'll be like falling.
His cell phone will be like...
Oh gosh. Anyways, yeah, that is Nomura-esque.
So I do think there will be something. I think there has to be something FF7 remake.
If that's true, that's freaking sick, dudes. We're like a week away from seeing
more FF7
news.
I hope what they show. Yeah. I hope what they show, because I agree with you. I think we're going to see some kind of footage. I hope what they show is all in game. I don't want to see more cutscene type stuff.
Right.
I don't know, because I don't...
Yeah.
They might be trying to go the route that Final Fantasy 15 went, at least, and where they don't... I guess they did have a couple, didn't they, of pre-rendered sequences. They were very...
They interspersed them, like with any of those really wide city shots were pre-rendered, and then they went to... Well, I just want to see some consecutive gameplay, like, strung together. Not like what we got in that older trailer with... it was really... jumpy, I want to see like a sequence or something like that. Preferably, like if they could have the bombing, like the just like I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes straight of just like bombing.
That would be a really good idea too. And this does
give
actually
people a better idea of how the game will go.
I just remembered the fact that Nomura had originally planned on releasing like some kind of conference where he was going to talk just about how the battle system works, and that was supposed to happen in like December. And then it got delayed into what people thought would be January for their big 30th event. Oh, and that didn't happen either. Yeah. So now it's been like more than 6
what I
months
heard,
since he had originally wanted to unveil what more of the gameplay would feel like. This could be an opportunity to do that. I don't know if it will be. I don't want to count on it, but It would be nice if they could at least explain like how that battle system works.
Answer some questions.
What was it at the Anime Expo or whatever that thing was in France?
In France,
yeah. That he came and he was like, "I want to show you a trailer, but I've been told I can't. So here's 2 photographs." Basically, it was like,
I wonder if he like had it on him, and there's like some dude last minute like, "Don't do it, man."
And he's like, "I want to show the people."
Trust me. Yeah. Don't make that mistake.
But, and then he showed photos instead. But they have stuff to show.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the green light to show it. Probably, and at least in the Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't know, we can stay Final Fantasy 7, but since we're talking about Nomura, with Kingdom Hearts 3, there's a lot of worlds that likely might be cut in the final game that they don't want to show.
Right.
In a near complete form, if they're just going to get cut later anyway.
Like they've actually learned from stuff they've
Nomura said recently, just a few weeks ago, maybe it was Nomura, I can't actually remember who said it, but they're saying that there's likely content that will be cut from Kingdom Hearts 3.
Like worlds
to
that
make
will be
sure,
cut.
Yeah. Well, who knows what it means. Who knows what it means. But a lot of people take it to mean worlds, and a lot of that kind of stuff will be cut.
You can cut it and then just sell it as a DLC pack, man.
So, and then it's not really cut.
Perfect. Actually, Kingdom Hearts is perfectly structured.
It is perfect for DLC. You know what? I never even realized that. Extra worlds.
We haven't had a Kingdom Hearts that took advantage of DLC yet.
That's how long it's been.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Kingdom Hearts are the kinds of games that like a lot of really hardcore gamers really like. The challenges of like post game content. Like you go to Hercules World and you can defeat all of the, and it's really hard to actually defeat like Sephiroth and to finish the Colosseum. And even in Kingdom Hearts 2, there's like what do they call it? The last will, something like that, where you fight the Birth by Sleep dudes like in their armor, like Ventus and Terra, and I believe you fight Terra, and he's got his like sweet looking like Final Fantasy 12 type armor, like the judges. And and he's lingering will, I think is what they call it. But anyways, that kind of stuff could fit very well as DLC content. The problem being they used to just give it to us without DLC, and now, trust me, guys, it's going to be DLC this time around. But yeah, totally. But with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, I would love to see some gameplay. I just don't think we will. Knowing Nomura, we've got a million cutscenes and not a ton of gameplay.
I would say that if they don't show it at E3, which I think is a good possibility that they won't.
Like anything?
Well, that they don't show any gameplay.
Yeah.
That they probably will at the Tokyo Game Show or something like that.
Oh, in September or August.
So, we'll see.
Yeah.
So that's Square Enix.
We can move on to Ubisoft. I'm trying to think what they've even had going
there
on.
will be
Assassin's Creed, because Kingdom Hearts 3,
Creed.
I wanted to mention, Kingdom Hearts 3 will totally be at E3. Like, guaranteed will be at E3.
In some form or another.
In some form or another. You won't be able to play it or anything. But there will be another trailer. It's been like 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been years.
Since they had a trailer.
Since they've had a big trailer. Actually, they had that, I think it was 2 years ago. They had that like chess game between the young versions of Xehanort and
Riku?
Master. No. It looked like Riku. That's actually Xehanort. It is Riku's model. It is Riku's character model. And people are like, oh, it's just a motif. It's just a parallel. I'm like, no, that's his freaking model, dude. Anyways. So it looks like Riku, but it's Xehanort. And the other guy, the guy who Luke Skywalker voices, Ericus. Is it Ericus? Master Ericus? Yeah. So those two are playing chess together. Nice. And somehow Ericus
and that's just symbolic of them playing the sides.
Yeah. Like, because while they're playing chess, they're talking about light versus dark kind of stuff, And Ericus has the white pieces and anyways. It's pretty great. That? But they showed that 2 years ago. They've got something else to show now, like for sure.
Do you remember that Pixar short where it's the old man playing chess with
against himself?
Yes, against himself.
They could literally do that in this, and it would
make sense. Yeah.
Xehanort playing against himself, dude. It's like, Xehanort is himself, but he's also Xemnas.
He's also he could totally play chess against all the incarnations of himself. They could play, what was that 6-way chess? Or that the marble game, the Chinese chess.
Oh,
is that what it is?
He could play one of those against like himself. Actually, supposedly there's 13 incarnations of Xehanort, and we'll learn who they all are in Kingdom Hearts 3. But there's 13 darknesses and 7 lights, so there's 13. He can have a 13-way.
What the?
He has a full soccer team, dude. He's got a full soccer team with 2 substitutes in case someone gets injured.
There you go. That's what we're gonna see. We're gonna see Kingdom Hearts soccer.
That's right.
FIFA crossover.
Anyway, so yeah, we're definitely going to see Kingdom Hearts 3 stuff, and I'm really excited to see what they show. It'll probably still just be more cutscene stuff, but I think they're further along on gameplay, specifically because they're using Unreal Engine 4 on Kingdom Hearts 3 than they are on Final Fantasy VII Remake. Even if I think the remake will come out before Kingdom Hearts 3, I think the gameplay of 3 is significantly further along. Especially because we've seen, a good amount of it as far as like jumping from like cliffs and stuff like that.
They got the cliffs done. They got
the cliffs done.
Lots of verticality, but I doubt we'll have a playable demo. But we're definitely going to see some of that too, and I'm stoked. I mostly want to see what like Final Fantasy stuff, because they've been like doing less and less Final Fantasy. Like Kingdom Hearts was supposed to be essentially Final Fantasy and Disney mixed together, right? And they're keeping all the Disney stuff in, but they're like slowly phasing out.
Well, they've got all these more original characters to the series.
It's more their original stuff.
They've succeeded in at least getting people to care about those characters.
But I want more Final Fantasy stuff there.
Yeah. Maybe they'll include summons, dude.
Summons. Might fight them in the Coliseum. That would make sense.
Actually, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be sweet.
Here's a wild. It's not a prediction. It's a hope. Because apparently there was a boss in World of Final Fantasy that came from Xenogears.
Oh, sweet. Dude, a lot of that World of Final Fantasy stuff should totally
Never mind.
find its
way.
They're not going to do anything with Xenogears. Okay.
No, Chrono Trigger 2. That's going to happen.
It's true,
this E3, guaranteed.
Chrono Trigger 2 is true.
It is true.
Okay,
moving on.
No, but
so we were going to talk about Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Oh,
Assassin's
we're going to
Creed.
go to Ubisoft.
They will have a new Assassin's Creed to announce.
I'm skeptical on like how actually different it's going to be. I think it'll still mostly be the same. They're just giving people a break.
Exactly.
If
that's all
the
they
case,
needed to do, really.
If that's the case, I won't play it.
Right. I would love to see one that was done in the style of the newest Hitman, where you have like a scenario, and there's a lot of different ways you could tackle it, and you would replay the scenario to try different approaches.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And if they can,
by the way,
wildly change like at least mission structure to where it's not like the same as every Assassin's Creed that we've had since basically 2. If they can mix it up in some way. To where it's not so much of an emphasis on the parkour.
They should have some forgery missions where you like have to trace a dude's handwriting over and over until you can forge the documents. Do some
motion controls.
If they are innovating
it
to any degree to change it up a little bit, I'll have some interest. But otherwise, I probably won't care.
Okay, then bets on time period for this Assassin's Creed. Are they going to keep moving forward?
Wasn't this one going to be Egypt or the next one?
I think it was.
Is that like
the rumor? The rumor was Egypt. I think it was.
I think. Yeah. Oh, is that just a rumor?
Well, The Mummy's coming out this next week. And,
Tom Cruise.
That might be the next big thing in pop culture.
No.
Oh, jeez.
But I do think though that we will get something on Halo 6. It's been since 2015 since the game was released.
Is it 434 Studios?
Yeah, 343. And Halo 4 came on 2012, so there's a 3-year gap in between those two. I think that an announcement, a teaser at least, to some degree, is probably since the Xbox One is.
Well, yeah. What else does? Yeah, they'll have something designed for Scorpio.
Yeah.
That can really leverage Scorpio's hardware, but they like. Microsoft, like, what are they going to do? Like that? Yeah, they have to have.
I think they need a Halo announcement, and
that's their one IP. They have to freaking use it.
So I would expect something Halo related to be. A
lot of people have been saying that the freaking what do they call it? Dragon Age.
Oh, another Dragon Age game?
That is going to be resurrected in some form.
That's true.
And that we could see, because apparently some domains were just registered
for
under
Dragon Age.
Like, something
That'd
like
be
that.
smart to do that.
Because we haven't seen it in a while, and that was supposed to be the Xbox One gen. Oh, look how great this generation of consoles is. And then it got delayed and never came out. But now we've got the Scorpio.
Wait. You're talking about the
Inquisition?
Sorry. You're talking about Scalebound.
Scalebound.
Oh,
Scalebound's what I was talking about. Okay. Not Dragon Age. I know Dragon Age. Completely different. Scalebound, the dude with the headphones and his pet dragon. That's what I was talking about.
By the way,
which did not look cool at all to me.
I think the director of that game came out and apologized recently for it being canceled. It said, "Hey, we're working on the next thing, Platinum Games. Sorry, everybody, we learned stuff."
It may not be Platinum, but I had heard that Microsoft was gonna still do something with that.
So, I mean, depending on why it was actually canceled,
right,
it's going to change some things there, because I heard that they were having a problem getting the Dragon AI working with the human player,
which might be why
to mesh very well.
Doesn't work for Xbox One, but the Scorpio. Scorpio could possibly get it to work.
Are there going to be Scorpio exclusives at this point? I feel like everything's
such a bad.
It would be pretty far down the line.
Oh, so you're saying they would say we're still working on this?
Yeah, I would say, hey, this is still a thing.
Please understand.
And maybe, I don't know. I had just heard
it's
that
a
there
sick
was going to be something
idea
like that.
in a lot of ways. There's something there.
Just take off the dude's headphones.
Take the headphones.
Get rid of that.
How does he listen to the background music if he doesn't have headphones?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question.
Other Microsoft stuff.
Halo. They own like all that like Rare stuff, right? They can make a Banjo-Kazooie game.
You can do another Perfect Dark.
I don't know.
That's the thing. Microsoft needs some exclusives really bad right now.
Yeah.
So I would love to see something like Scalebound.
That's
or if
why
it's not
I
that,
heard
something
that
else come
they're
up
going to bring that back.
An exclusive. They need
something.
Also, is Rare's pirate game done yet?
Oh gosh,
because it was at last
year E3. I didn't hear about it. I haven't heard anything about it.
I've not heard anything about it.
Maybe it came out.
I do think it came out, but
did it?
I think it did.
I wanted to play it. I liked the style, the look of that game, and everything.
Yeah.
It looked fun. But,
yeah. I think that we will. This is not Microsoft, but get a lot of God of War stuff. They announced that new.
There's
God
a
of War.
giant ad that they painted on one of those skyscrapers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For God
of War.
They're definitely going to be E3 then.
And Kratos got a beard now, man. So
he's got a beard and a son. Right?
Yeah, he's got a beard and a son. Who else has a beard and a son? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. We want to know who you are. Come and interview.
When the last God of War came out, you didn't have a beard or a son. But now you have a beard and a son.
It's going to be like Harry Potter. You're following the progress of Kratos.
Let us know who you are.
His life.
Who of you can identify with Kratos in this game?
Last time they had Horizon Zero Dawn was a surprise presence at E3. Like, it was the kind of thing that everyone saw trailers from and was like, holy crap, that is sick. They had the mech things walking around. They had a lot of stuff up. Like, there was like kind of a wall that was painted up for it, I think.
Yeah.
Near, it's kind of between like Sony and Microsoft sides. But so I'm hoping there is something breakout like that this year that nobody saw coming, because that's always exciting.
That would be cool.
See, because we talk about this and like, well, yeah, another Halo and another whatever, another this and another God of War.
I know what's
the
new stuff, because you're talking about Microsoft needing a new IP. They should have something to show along those lines sometime.
Yeah,
if they got a new system coming out.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Scorpio, like, what are you guys thinking? Like, that's going to be at E3.
Yeah,
because it's coming out
for sure.
Some kind of presence for it. But
but
all it was just a hardware upgrade. Like, it wasn't like a new console necessarily, right? Like,
no, but it's apparently
going to powerful GPU.
Have like 10 teraflops or something like that,
or 8 point something. I can't remember. But it's
really high.
Jump,
like the PlayStation 2 is like 2 or 3, right? And it's like freaking like
PlayStation
massive.
2 or the
PlayStation 4.
I was like, wait a minute.
The PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 4 Pro is like
PS4 base PS4 is 1.8 teraflop.
1.8, but the PS4 Pro was like a 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, something like double maybe. PS4 Pro teraflops. 4.12.
4.1, and this one's double that. The Scorpio is like double what the Pro can do.
Well, so their whole thing is it's supposed to actually be native 4K, like the Scorpio native 4K, which I think is so
doesn't matter.
Overblown. The importance of
Would
that.
you say it's overrated?
I think it's overrated because I feel like the upscaling that the PS4 Pro does is a great way to bridge the gap. Like, throwing that horsepower at something like native 4K, it just seems like a poor use of resources. That is my opinion.
I agree.
We should put a little card. I will not remember to do this, but hopefully I do. A little card that pops up, the little eye in the corner for a little poll. Do you have a 4K TV or not? Yes or no?
Oh snap!
Don't lie.
Don't lie on our poll, guys.
We'll know.
Scaring of our poll.
But if this is supposed to be so much better than the PS4 Pro was, then it's like, whether they will call it a next generation or not, it will likely be capable of well beyond what the Xbox One was able to do.
Yeah.
So
well,
they did talk about
be a next generation, whether they call it that.
There was some executive at Microsoft who was talking about how the idea moving forward is not to release like these new consoles every 5 years, but just upgraded.
Yeah.
Like one brand, but just kind of upgrade it.
Yeah.
But this is not what I was thinking that meant. I was thinking it meant go grab a new video card from the store and put it in your casing or whatever.
Well, you might be able to do that to the Scorpio, but you can't do that to the Xbox
right.
One. So it'd have to start with their next thing.
Maybe it would start
and
with,
move forward.
I don't know, but
it's tricky because consoles, the appeal. At least I feel like most of the appeal of consoles is convenience, and so and reliability, right? Like I know this game says PS4 on it. I know it'll run as they intended on my thing or Xbox One, and
well, the day that I have to like go out and buy a new like GPU for my console and install it myself is the day I switch to PC gaming completely.
But at the same time,
this is a PC. That's what this is. I have one. I'm going to just use it.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like the N64 had the expansion pack.
It did, yeah.
So if they,
I think there are ways to make it convenient.
In a way, it came with the game, though. It just came with it, right?
Handle your RAM very carefully. Don't make sure not touch it. Like
Don't
they
touch
can encase it in certain ways to where it's easy to do. But
because that pack was sold with the games. I don't know that the game was really any more expensive. But you got a pack with Donkey Kong or with...
It came with Donkey Kong Country because Donkey Kong Country
Squadron.
would crash with that. It didn't even use it, but it would crash if you didn't have it.
Oh, really? That's funny.
That's funny.
But there are certain games that it just came with it, and that was that. With what we're talking about is stuff that is a little more expensive that would likely... You got to buy it separately and install it. And
it's definitely a new idea, though. I mean, it's definitely... For what we're seeing right now, it's kind of out there, so...
Well, it's new for consoles. It's a PC...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, putting that much trust in the console consumer, I guess. You know, like the mom, the single working mother
and
that has an 8-year-old and isn't gonna want to get in there and like mess with that stuff. But
yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
But yeah, the Scorpio should have some kind of presence there. I think
there should be some hands-on Scorpio stuff, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
So
Atlas.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the Persona 5 dancing game will be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've registered a ton of crap, but I feel like that's.
You know what will probably be there is Radiant Historia.
Yeah, that'll totally be there because it's coming out like in
sometime soon
or two.
Sometime soon.
Yeah,
it's a great excuse to play that game again. Freaking love that game.
Yeah.
So Radiant Historia, they probably won't have anything to announce. I think on their Project Fantasy or whatever. I don't think that's had enough time.
To I don't think
get off the ground really. So
quite.
That probably won't have a presence at all. But
next year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what.
I don't know what else. I mean, probably they'll probably just have Persona 5 stuff. Honestly, just keep buying our game, guys. We
buy it again.
Keep buying it.
Well, last year, a huge presence last year.
Yeah,
Persona 5
did. Although there was nothing playable.
Yeah, they had the panels and the
Morgana was on all the passes, all the tags. So I wonder what's going to be. It was the lanyard was Zelda.
It was Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
But on the back of it was.
And then the card was.
And then the card had like Morgana coming off top.
It was actually freaking annoying because they made it bigger than the card should have been, and it like stuck out, and it was freaking obnoxious.
Everyone's card was flipped backwards. Everyone's thing was messed up. Okay, well, maybe more Atlas stuff. But
is that like video game cover band going to be at E3?
They were good.
They were pretty good.
The one-ups or whatever they're called.
Those dudes were good.
Yeah, they were good.
Hopefully they'll be there again. It was a nice thing to do. Just chill and.
What about Smash Brothers Deluxe for the Switch?
Oh, okay. That is a definite possibility.
I think.
Are you referencing the leaks and stuff, or just the idea? Okay.
Just the idea. Regardless of what people have been leaking, I think it's very they should be doing. After Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out and sold better than the original, which is crazy, at least for the time period. It's like, dude, port all those games over, man. People are going to buy that stuff.
Yeah,
port Smash Deluxe.
They should definitely port some more Wii U games, I think.
Yeah.
For a lot of people that missed out on it. But the thing is
that by early 2018 if they
Wii U sold, what, 10, 12 million units, and the Switch is probably around 2. So
right now,
2 or 3 at the moment.
Well, that was like their first month, I think, was 2.
They've likely sold more now.
They've sold all that they've been able to make.
Bad with letting people know how much of their stuff is sold. They're very bad at that.
In any case, it'd probably be a good idea.
I think they should.
But
okay, Capcom. So Monster Hunter Double Cross or whatever they're going to call that in the United States.
Oh yeah,
on the Switch.
Oh yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a big deal
because that's August. I think
it's running on the 3DS game engine, but it will look
scale.
Good. Yeah, it'll have high res graphics.
It'll probably look similar to Try on Wii.
It looks almost exactly the same. Gaijin Hunter was doing some side by sides. He went to places in the 3DS and then screen capped what they had shown in the trailer. And it's interesting to compare because they've upscaled a lot of textures and stuff. Obviously, it's not like just the resolution, but it looks just like Monster Hunter 3 U or Ultimate or whatever.
It'll still sell.
People still waiting for like a true next gen Monster Hunter.
Well, okay, here's the real thing that could blow everybody's minds, or at least anybody who cares, is that there have been rumors floating for the past several months that the 5th generation Monster Hunter is going to be a PlayStation 4 game. People have been floating that for quite a while. This would be, if it's going to happen, I feel like we're going to hear about it at E3.
Well,
if they're not going to do that, if they're going to stick with Nintendo. Anyways, that could be the one, though. Where
I could see that going either way because, like, the PlayStation 4's install base is huge.
It's big.
It's big.
There's no reason not to try and tap into that. But
the Switch's future potential.
The Switch has been selling really well.
Yeah.
Just make one for both, dude.
Do it for both.
Just make one for both.
Not to.
Do crossplay. Yeah, make it so people can... Because they're good with the 3DS and the Switch. I don't know if there's stuff Nintendo has to do with that, like how, like maybe restricting that. I don't know.
I know that like Final Fantasy 14 Online does it between the PlayStation 4 version and the PC version.
Oh, speaking of that, some people have been saying there might be a Final Fantasy 14 Switch version that might be available at some point.
Interesting.
That'd be cool. I don't think so, but it would be cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Other Capcom stuff. We won't see more Resident Evil because
that one just came out.
I don't think we will see more Resident Evil.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Well. Although that last game wasn't like a huge...
it was a lower budget.
Big budget to massive team. So if they are going to have something...
because they had this whole haunted house looking thing smack dab in the middle, like the whole place.
Yeah, it was like right in the middle.
That was pretty cool.
What other Capcom? Probably no Mega Man anything. There's the new Marvel Capcom versus Marvel.
Capcom versus Marvel, yeah.
That I think we already know about. I don't know. And then what? Bethesda.
No, yeah.
I never know what to think about Bethesda.
So there's a big
they're a wild card.
There's a big leak that is possibly completely bogus, but may as well bring it up, right?
Okay.
Starfield something or other. I can't remember what it's called. The Bethesda is making a new game that is basically Fallout 4, but like future space type stuff. It's more post-apocalyptic stuff, but we're in space, and you get to like go around, and it's open world, of course, and Mass Effect.
That would be cool.
Stuff.
Huh?
Yeah,
I'd
be into that.
Well, yeah, because we're not. Cool. The next Elder Scrolls is nowhere.
Apparently not until 2020. Yeah.
We just had Fallout 4.
Fallout 4. Yeah. What is
so unless there's an iteration of Fallout 4.
They just released Prey, and they just released what else did they recently release? Doom 2016.
Mm-hmm. Doom, yeah.
So they got those out. So there's got to be something.
Something's coming out in the next year or two, and I believe, this is. I just read it this morning. I did not read too much about it.
Yeah.
But it was shared by Wayside Creations, the guys who make the Fallout Nuka Break.
Fallout Nuka Break, yeah.
And Yeah, they were saying, "Oh, this would be so cool."
That would be tight.
Sick.
I would be into that.
But that's not confirmed, I don't think. Maybe it is confirmed. Maybe they announced it.
Well, I mean,
as far as I know, it's just a rumor.
Not a lot of companies announce crap like the week before.
Not really. Yeah. Pokemon is unusual. Yeah.
Or exception.
Monster Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an exception.
That's interesting. Yeah, because otherwise it's like, what the crap?
What are they doing?
Big.
Skyrim for the Switch, dude.
Oh,
we're gonna find out if it's actually the remaster or not. Maybe at E3.
What's funny is I don't think anyone even cares anymore. I think people that have a Switch are just like, I just want to play things on this. So give me whatever.
Give me a game.
Whatever you got.
Whatever. I think it's possible it may not be the remaster version. Oh, here's one from EA. The FIFA 2018 is not going to run on their is it Frostbite? What is their new engine? I can't remember. The new engine that FIFA 17 ran on the PS4.
Okay.
They developed a new game engine that people really liked, and apparently the Switch version of FIFA 18 will run on the previous generation engine, not the current engine.
They're naming it slightly differently too, I think.
Oh, FIFA 18,
or
and
just
they're going to have a subtitle.
I don't know.
It's going to be missing a couple features that the other versions will have.
I mean, of course it will, right?
There we go.
It's EA.
There we go. Switch already.
Switch is the inferior.
D makes.
Just look at it that way. It's the retro.
Yeah, it's retro.
FIFA 18. It's a throwback to 2017.
Yeah. EA is supporting the past by doing D-makes. I love it.
It doesn't surprise me that EA wouldn't put the kind of effort to get the Switch version to...
I feel like that was like already in the pipeline, so we're getting what they were thinking like, late last year, but there's been some promising quotes recently.
Yeah, that they're going to
be more serious about supporting the Switch. Because they got burned bad on the Wii U. Like, EA went all in on the Wii U with a ton of crap, and none of it sold.
Didn't work out. EA and Ubisoft both kind of...
Yeah, Ubisoft got Zombie U was
Zombie U. Assassin's Creed 3 was on the Wii U. And
then they just released it again as Zombie.
It's not the same without the gamepad.
Zombie Me.
What other game companies are there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anyone we're over.
I don't think there's anybody that we would have any knowledge about that we haven't talked about.
Last Guardian will not be at E3.
Will not be there. Nope.
Because they were there.
That's a guarantee.
They were there. Not another Civ game at E3. So
no.
Not gonna waste my time with that line.
What 2K stuff is there going to be? They had
question.
NBA probably. NBA 2K18.
2K18.
I'm trying to think. Well, last year there was a huge area for For Honor, and I think Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh yeah.
That Ubisoft had kind of a big multiplayer.
Star Trek Bridge. Whatever.
Yes, Bridge Command. We were like looking in the window, people playing that.
I want to see this game. What is this game?
Oh my gosh.
That was fun.
Anyways.
Okay, so that'll be it for our E3 thoughts and predictions. We'll see what actually happens next week. All right.
Surprised.
So I saw this and I was like, should we talk about it? And then I saw it again on another website. So it was reported more than one place. I was like, looks like this is apparently worth talking about. I think it could lead to an interesting discussion. I think what the guy said isn't of it in itself stupid, but
the first part
of what he said
a
point of view
makes sense.
Yeah,
because the first part of what he said was like people aren't using the backwards compatibility feature.
Yeah, it's the most requested feature.
Yeah,
but the least used.
It's not used.
It's not used. So I would expect to have data on that.
Yeah.
With the
I wonder how you. Anyways. Yeah. But his name is Jim Ryan. He's the head of the global sales and marketing at Sony. And he was talking about a recent event they had. A bunch of Gran Turismo games are being played from the PlayStation 1 through the PlayStation 4.
Like one for each.
And he was talking about what you just mentioned. This is a feature that everybody asks or requests, but then they don't use, which I find interesting. Like, how does he know that exactly? And is he talking strictly about, say, like the PlayStation 3 being able to play PlayStation 2 games? Like, so how can he know that people aren't sticking the PS2 games into the PlayStation 3?
I guess it depends on how much data they're gathering in the user when you're connected to the PlayStation Network.
Yeah, you might be agreeing to sharing data with them.
Is he talking about, like, classic downloads? You know what I mean? Like,
supporting
PS1 games on their PS3 and playing. Because they don't have any PS1 games. 7. Yeah. They have no PS1 classics available on the PS4. They have only PS2 classics. And
because they're not classics.
That doesn't make sense to me. It's like I don't know. And we'll get into this a little bit more in a minute. I know that like creating emulators that are reliable to play all the games perfectly is an issue for these companies. I'll get into that in a minute. But most importantly, I think what he was referring to was people are not sticking their old PS2 or PS1 discs into their new system.
What's traditionally known as backwards compatibility.
He seems to think people are not using that despite it being something that is requested. Now, the idea that we don't want to create hardware that is capable of this because it's not worth the investment to do so is fine. Because I think that selling the games digitally and having some kind of emulation possible with the system makes more sense and it's more convenient anyways, and is more reliable because your discs are going to get scratched. And you could make the games look a little cleaner anyways. When you emulate them, you could upscale them, right? So I'm all fine with not having the backwards compatibility in terms of putting the old disc or the old media into it. But he goes on to say, as he was watching people play all these Gran Turismos from the PlayStation 1, like how bad they looked. Like, oh man, these games look ancient. And I think his quote was like, why would anybody play this? And that was...
You know
you're the head of global sales and marketing.
Exactly. That echoes a common thing I hear from people. I don't hear from people in his position ever. But you do hear from people, like friends and people we talk to online or elsewhere, is like, oh, why would anyone want to play an older game versus a newer game, right? Like, you have that hard argument about, is pixel art?
Yeah,
because it doesn't look good, and modern games are so much better. Like, there are obviously people who think like that. But they're usually not the head of marketing for the company that makes video games that has made video games for 30 years. Yeah. They're usually not in that position.
Yeah. So many of these executives do not play video games.
You know, it's true.
A lot of them don't. A lot of them either partly because they don't have the time, but also just because like they went and they got their MBA and then they got a job where there was a job available. And they're in that job because they're good at marketing. Like so some of these people are freaking really separated from the actual culture that they're trying to market to.
Yeah, dude. Kimishima, when he was a banker, was totally just playing the CSP every day.
That's what cracks me up about Reggie. Because Reggie...
He actually plays.
Reggie put like 400 something hours into Dragon Quest 9.
Oh, nice.
Right? Like... How are you doing that when you see him in board meetings and no one's telling him to put it away because he's the
This may be telling. A few years ago, he did get demoted. He was the president of Nintendo America. Now he's the
COO.
The COO, or he's still like
he's still the top dog in America.
Yeah, he's still the spokesperson. But no, there's a Japanese
Japan has more control.
Yeah, who is technically, I think it was Iwata assumed control over Nintendo America at the time. And it was Fisame was still the CEO, but he was no longer the president or something like that. Anyways,
too much.
Maybe why he's playing games way too much.
Too much.
On his freaking Galaxy 3DS.
I know for a fact he also played A Link Between Worlds because his favorite game of all time is A Link to the Past.
Ah, yeah.
Anyways, he's one of the few execs that they play.
He's one of the few.
Iwata was one of the few that plays games.
And I know Eiji Aonuma only recently started playing games. Like he talked about it like in an interview where he's like, I've made like 30 games now and I've never played one before. So finally, like 6 years ago, he's like, this isn't right. I should play games. So he started playing games, and he's got some friends. And he played Last Guardian, and he really liked that. And he plays his friends' games because he's friends with like Fumito Ueda and the other game developers and stuff. And but that's a recent development. He used to not play games. Like one of the greatest video game directors ever, and he doesn't play games.
That is
interesting. Up until recently. That is super common. But even still, to have that kind of like viewpoint.
Yeah.
He's a progressive. He's ultra progressive. Jim Ryan, don't look backwards, only the future.
burn the bridges that
burn the
bridges you are right now.
Burn the old consoles.
And I was looking on, I think it was the Kotaku comments on this article, and there was somebody who was they have cleaned it up a bit.
They hide the crap ones.
They have some good moderation going on now. So the comments I was reading were like legit discussion back and forth, no like name calling or petulance or anything like that. So one guy was asking like serious question, like why should we expect them to put forward the expense to preserve these titles and make them available on every new console or whatever, when the sales are obviously telling them that it's not worth that investment.
Yeah.
Or the people aren't using that as much as they think they would, or something like that.
That's a good point. It's a fair question.
Now, somebody else brought up in response to that, they used to say the same thing about preserving films. And that didn't go so well.
They used to re-record over films back in the day.
Yeah.
They were like, why would anyone want to watch this again? Because film is made of like silver, kind of. That's the sensory part of the film.
Deteriorates or whatever.
And exactly. And so that's expensive, right? Film is expensive. And so back in the day, they used to recycle film. And all those old movies, like the Georges Méliès stuff from forever ago, we only have like 3 of his like clips from his movies now, because they all got recycled. And what a freaking shame, right?
It's terrible.
That's a great point. That's a very good point.
What's interesting as a comparison for that, however, is that it wasn't until like roughly 1980 that people became capable of playing a movie whenever they wanted to.
That's true,
right?
To
like
the VCR.
it was an on-demand thing, because you could
own
own a
put them in
VHS.
theaters
Before, that was the only way to see it.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
There's definitely like some parallels there. However, at the same time, we have like this on-demand culture is in place for video games right now.
Yeah.
You can play Final Fantasy VII right now if you want to. You don't have to like wait for a screen to come back around, because that used to happen all the time. Disney movies would be re-screened like every couple of years. They'd have a screening.
Well, when you say you can play a game right now, that is true as long as your
still
old
have
system
the old
works.
hardware. Yeah,
but and that's where I think emulation comes in. Is actually plays a really important role in this kind of stuff, because if a company isn't willing, because it's too expensive to preserve these games and to port them on each consecutive system, then they should legally be allowing other people to do that for them, right? Because if you're not going to put forth any effort, and if you don't think you're going to make any money off of it, then you should be okay with somebody else who does care about preserving your games, your company's stuff from the past. You should be okay with letting them do it, and not,
as
chasing
like a
after
moral
them legally.
position.
Exactly. Yeah. The preservation of this content. I mean, if you're not going to do it, let someone else do it. Let someone else make these games available to be played, because you don't care.
The thing I wonder about too, though, is what the cost of building an emulator really is, because we have these guys all around the world working in teams of like 3 or 4 people in their part-time to create these emulators that, at least now, basically run perfectly. Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, and even to some extent PlayStation 2. It's not quite perfect on that yet, but it's close.
They essentially recreate what the original thing
they
was.
can do that working as hobbyists in teams of 3 or 4 dudes, why can't a company like Sony or Nintendo build a really solid emulator for their new console? That does not make sense to me.
So one thing on half of that point is supposedly within Nintendo, they're so strict on their emulation standards that they will not release virtual console stuff that isn't emulating essentially 100% perfectly. So they would rather like not re-release it, which is why sometimes you don't get virtual console crap, because they're like, we're not going to put it out unless it's up to our standard or whatever. And so it may be possible to get something to that 95% threshold or whatever, emulating really well, but maybe not, at least on Nintendo's part, maybe on their end, they're like, the amount of time that would go in to get it up to what we want is it maybe not worth it. Because like, say you have a team of 3 programmers, and let's say they're maverick, like killer programmers that could make $100K a year wherever they'd be working otherwise. If they take a year to work on that, you're talking $300,000 investment theoretically on this company's behalf. Will they make that back?
Do you think they could make that back literally with just the sales of like Super Mario Brothers 3 or something?
Oh, Nintendo?
Yeah,
probably.
Just digital sales of Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah, that's probably the probably the bare minimum.
Like
is
a library of 100 or 200 NES games. You know what I mean?
Right. You compound that with the fact that they want people to keep repurchasing these games.
I know, that is the hard part.
How often will they
But they did say recently, didn't they, that now those purchases will be tied to your Nintendo account?
Which
means you won't have to repurchase them again.
It's great, but also then it makes me think maybe they're now more decentivized to possibly that up. Because what are you going to do on the next hardware iteration?
This is what I would do. That's a good point. I think what I would do if I were in the position, instead of trying to create like a new emulator that works on the new hardware every iteration you come out with, I would try to make it web stream based somehow. Like have these games available on like the Nintendo website that you can just go in there and play.
I think
somehow
Nintendo appears to be kind of trying to do about half of what you're talking about, which is their online service, which we now know more about.
Yeah,
about $20 a year.
You get a game a month.
It won't kick in until 2018.
Yeah,
but the game a month thing's different now. You now have access to a library of games. They're saying, which makes more sense because it was weird.
Yeah, because there's like they'll give you a game. Yeah.
You can only play one game, but you can only play Mario.
So that's not it.
No,
that's not how it works.
So now you have access to a library, an array of online enabled,
which they're saying is different from Virtual Console, even still, right?
Because
which is like
it sounds like these games are going to have multiplayer like elements put into them.
Yeah,
and it sounds like they're mostly NES games.
Yeah.
But so anyways, that might be a way to continue to make money off of that. However, it's not the same. You're not playing Balloon Fight or Flight. I can't remember which one. The balloon game. You're not playing the original version anymore, and in that sense, you're losing that history.
That's true.
If that's the only version they're willing to support, and then if someone else wants to support the original, but they're like, but you're cutting into our like online subscription thing when people have to pay to play this, so you can't do that. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely a case to be made, and I think it comes down to individual countries enforcing these laws themselves for just preservation efforts alone, like Library of Congress.
Yeah,
that stuff makes complete sense to me. I think there needs to be ways to stop companies from coming in here and saying you can't preserve our game. We'd rather let it like crumble and die than you pretend that we have anything to do with this or whatever their issue is.
Freaking can't let the Lifehold be destroyed, dude. It's the Blood Chronicles X reference right there. Lifehold has like the entire Library of Congress in it.
Oh, it's on.
They freaking destroy all of humanity's history. I don't know. Like, obviously, we run a channel of people who are very invested and very interested in classic games, especially from the Super Nintendo and PlayStation 1 era. And I just think it's. I mean, this guy's, they don't have to put a label on it. What this guy says is not representative of the whole company or whatever. Like,
right,
well, I know that what he says is his own opinion. He's not representing Sony by saying this.
Well, of course.
But it does make me wonder how much, Sony or Nintendo really value preserving that old content. I mean, I think Nintendo, we can say, does preserve it or value preserving it because almost their entire image is based in a 40-year-old character, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously they have that strongly, but it's just they make puzzling decisions about how to distribute that or how much of it to distribute. Yeah, but Sony, like
very similar to Disney in this.
They don't have that same sense of like strong identity with like a mascot character from their first generation console. You know what I mean? They don't have. It's not like Crash Bandicoot is like their image.
Oh, speaking of like the freaking remastered Crash series, that will be at E3, right? And that is going to be released. When is that going to be released? Sometime this year. They've remastered like the 3 original games.
Yeah.
And anyways,
they preserved it.
Yeah, so I mean,
but finally they're bringing it back 4 generations later, right?
I wonder how invested Sony is in making sure that these PS1 classics are preserved, but also like available for people to continue to consume. And it's just so weird to me that they have this PS2 emulator on their PS4 that can play like Rogue Galaxy and stuff like that, but they don't have their PS1 classics on it. And I don't know, I'm baffled by that. Like, I feel like, I mean, they'll know better than anyone how much they make, how much profit they make on providing a service like that. And yes, if it's not making them a profit, if it's more of a hassle than it's worth, then absolutely they have every right to do that. But there's got to be some way like I was saying, maybe streaming it through their website or something, that people can access these games and continue playing them. Because my PlayStation 1 disc of Final Fantasy VII is not going to last forever.
Well, CDs don't. No,
who knows if I'll be able to put
CDs
that
about 20 years. Right?
Put that disc into my PC and run it on an emulator in 30 years from now.
Yeah, like, unless you get those gold. Remember when we did the Skyrim video with the men's chorus, and we got that gold. I found this the other day, by the way. We got the gold master CD of just the choir, and it was gold, so that it would last. It was guaranteed like 100 years or something like that. But that's sort of like the problem with like all of history. There's people like freaking Jim Ryan who gives a crap about reading this story from 1700. I don't care. Who gives a crap about seeing this movie from 1920? Right. I don't care. Right?
What about this play, this Shakespearean, play?
Who go watch
500 years ago
when you could go watch Wicked, right? Like
exactly.
There's always that,
or the Book of Mormon musical.
There aren't, or the Book of Mormon musical.
Why watch Shakespeare when you could go
watch the Book of Mormon? There's people like Jim Ryan.
Won more Tony Awards than
Shakespeare. I think they're scattered throughout our entire society, throughout every discipline.
Just people who don't value history.
They don't
like care. It's not even about playing it again, honestly. Because I can't wait for the entertainment value of this old game as much as it even is just about going back and revisiting like what the world was like back then, and like having an understanding of like how people thought. And the kinds of stories they told and what that meant about the time period.
It always blows my mind going back to playing 80s games and being like, this was the best thing that they had ever seen up to this point. And you watch the commercials where there's like the kid, like the Legend of Zelda, the very first Legend of Zelda came out, and there was that commercial with the kid, and he's like, oh, you got this sword, and you're like, it's like you're fighting. And I'm like, looking at that now after playing these immersive 3D games and coming back to it, it's like, I feel so detached from this character. I can hardly even tell that's a sword, right? But back then it was like, oh my gosh, this is the most immersive thing ever. And it's so fun to go back and look and put yourself into the mindset. Even like a generation ago. Much less more than that.
The historical context is worth preserving, and even if you personally can't get into something that looks ancient, like you got there's other reasons, there's other important reasons to preserve this stuff.
I think that this is also unique in that we're at the kind of intersection between traditional history, where like a written document could be preserved for a really long time under the right circumstances, but a lot of the information we're generating these days is digital and can very easily be wiped out and completely lost forever. Like, not like someone...
That's true, actually.
You know what I mean? It can just be lost. Hard drives can fail. Like, CDs are going to... We know will degrade after a certain period of time. Way sooner than paper or crap, etched in stone. So we have to take a more proactive approach to making sure that digital information isn't completely lost forever. And we're going to end up with more and more and more.
Wasn't there a company somewhere that was like, we lost this game? Like, there was like a big popular game from like a while ago.
We're talking about assets for...
I remember reading that it was about Kingdom Hearts 1, but I actually doubt how true that is.
Because when they did the remaster, they had to recreate all the assets.
But I don't think they did, because back to back they look the same. So I think that must have been a false rumor.
That is what I had heard, though. It was Kingdom Hearts.
The old older Dragon Quest games they showed recently, that a lot of them, like, everything is preserved in, like, we used to have them here, but one of those business boxes on a shelf.
Oh my gosh.
And that's like, here's freaking Dragon Quest 3.
Jeez.
And it's if there's a fire, that's forever. Gone. Like,
that's true.
People haven't cared as much about. Especially if you're a company struggling to survive, you're not thinking that far ahead. You don't care. You just like, and in some ways, like, Sony was losing a crap ton of money only a couple years ago. As a company, Sony is still losing. Actually, I want to say they're losing money right now, but they have a lot of divisions that are. So I don't know how much like credence they give to this kind of crap, because it's not going to hurt your bottom line. At any point, I don't think. No one's gonna like boycott your company because you don't like. But it's just a moral thing. It's like, and it's thinking on a human scale of like,
rather than just pure money.
Exactly. And that takes people need to step back, and historians don't make any money.
No,
they don't. It's not something that's economically like super. Although this is a way where it could be economically kind of supported, because. people are still willing to pay and buy an NES Classic and play these games that are really old.
That's actually a good thing to bring up. Like, they talk about emulation isn't worth the hassle, but they can't even freaking keep stocked the NES Classic, so obviously there's a demand for it. So
they're not
whether or not
in
the people who bought that NES Classic played it for longer than a couple of days is irrelevant. They still were willing to buy it.
I wonder what happens when, because the NES was a console that we played while we were alive. We are still alive today, but at some point we will not still be alive.
And then we will care. Yeah.
Does the next generation give a crap about that? And how do you pass that on? That's why this stuff is important. Like, the people who really care about Gran Turismo 1 or whatever the game was, they're going to need to tell their kids about it and then make their kids care. Like, that's the only way this crap survives.
Oh, certainly.
And if people like Jim Ryan are making that harder to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't alive when Star Wars came out. Right. But I still love Star Wars. Yeah. And I wasn't alive when the bands my dad listened to in high school wrote their music, but I still value their music.
Yeah.
So if that had not been preserved, or if someone had stepped in and be like, who cares about this old music? What's crazy, though? Like, throw those away. Throw those records out. Like, man, that would be a tragedy.
I guess the fidelity of the movies and the music from the 70s versus the fidelity of a game now versus a game from the 80s is, I think it's a pretty big gap. You listen to a song from the 70s, you can still tell, okay, there's no, like, the bass isn't very, the drums aren't coming through super clean, or the vocals, it's a little noisy. Or with the old movies, they're grainy and they didn't have color correction, but they're comparable to what we have today. Whereas I don't think games in the 80s are comparable at all to what we have today. Like, it's just a massive step back.
But I think
in that term, as far as getting kids excited,
I still think that the value that they have in terms of, like, at least for me, I don't know what it is like for other people. Like, I can still go back and play NES games that I never had touched before and still, like, have a ton of fun playing them, right? Even though it's like I didn't grow up with that, and even though I had no experience with that particular game or whatever, I can still step back and play that game and get all the way through it and not feel like, oh, I'm bored or like this is outdated or anything like that. That's just me personally. And I feel like... I mean, I don't know, because I can only speak from personal experience. Can some kid who's 15 years old today do that? I don't know. There's got to be some that have that level of appreciation. Or the games, there have to be the best games of that era were good enough, fun enough, to where it can overcome its presentational, I guess...
the technical limits
gap of how bad it looked in comparison to, say, you're saying the look or the presentational aspects of Star Wars to Star Wars isn't as
Star Wars
large
Episode 7 versus Episode 4.
Mario 1 to Mario Galaxy or Odyssey or something like that. Like that's a very big difference. However,
that would essentially be what I'm saying.
The game itself fun enough to play that it overcomes that. And I think there are enough NES games that just in and of themselves, like the game is fun enough to where its presentational aspects, I think it can overcome those things and still be...
Well, it becomes an issue of, like, the whole judging a book by its cover type problem. Like, getting people over that initial, like, energy that it takes to start a new task is oftentimes, like, the biggest hurdle. And so, like once you put that initial energy into playing an NES game, it's like, this is... Depending on the game, there's a lot of
there are a lot of bad NES games.
It's
That's
fun.
the thing. We might preserve 3 or 4 of the real fun ones, but the other 99% are going to be thrown away.
Do we still want to preserve?
Do we want to preserve those?
Do we want to preserve Bible games? From 1986 or
like
whatever.
the Chex Quest, the Bible Quest version of Chex Quest.
But I feel like the technology has been driving things so much more than the culture. I feel like at this point with video games, like, new technologies allowed for new things quicker than the culture has moved on from those things. So, like, for example, like, I think that happened with the advent of the electric guitar. So you go from, most people listen to, I don't know, more like chill, like swing music and stuff, like going from the 40s. But then you get into the 50s when the electric guitar becomes super prominent. And very quickly, by the mid to late '60s, you have like
heavy metal.
Well, you've got rock and roll in a form that's recognizable today, even if it's not recorded with the same tools and whatever.
Right.
But there's people that still emulate that sound even today with with Jimi Hendrix's sound or even like Led Zeppelin.
Right.
It's Cooper. But then that stuff, I feel like the technology, it's just here it is. The recording technology continued to advance, which allowed us to do crap like dubstep and things today.
Right.
But I don't think technology has pushed the music as much as like the culture did.
Game, yeah.
Just kind of what people's tastes changing. Right. And I feel like video games, at least to date, have been mostly pushed by the technology and not as much by the culture.
Right.
I don't want to diminish the impact of video games on culture, but I do feel like we're going to hit this point with diminishing returns on the technology where the cultural,
which is why
the
Nintendo
culture will
is
carry
trying
it moving
to
forward.
do. I would say for film, that would either be sound or color, right? That once sound came into film, that's all people wanted. They just wanted a talkie. They didn't want a movie.
Even though it meant you can't move the camera anymore.
Exactly. They were willing to deal with all that. And to this day, people don't really watch black and white silent films. I mean, some people do. I personally have seen a bunch because I went to freaking film school. But if I didn't, I may have seen a couple in my lifetime, and that would be it, and I wouldn't really care.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily have, liked them or appreciated them. But then also with like color, once color came out, it was like, oh, everything's got.
Well, actually, dude, that's a really good point. Education is what makes people appreciate.
Oh, it totally
this kind
is.
of stuff.
It totally is.
If the education is there, if someone can sit down with somebody like who programmed, Gran Turismo 1 or whatever, that's Gran Turismo series we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And sit there and be like, dudes, okay, see what you're seeing? Like, that's not really 3D. Like, we had to pull this trick to, like, make this work. Your car's not moving. The world's actually what we had to move because, you know what I mean? In how they faked the physics. And, like, the more you're educated about that kind of stuff, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's crazy.
That's a thing that I guess doesn't exist now.
That kind of education.
So I have a degree in film critical analysis. I don't think you can get a degree in video game critical analysis at the moment.
Not yet.
However, in the future, that should be a thing that culturally has been driven to where people, and then you come in and you have classes and you play old games and you talk about.
And then you say, "This is why Citizen Kane is considered the greatest movie of all time." Not because you would have watched it and gotten that, but once you learn how they doubled up the focus and all that. Kind of crap.
All the crazy animation techniques they used there were wild.
But it takes education.
Yeah.
And I feel like people aren't. There's got to be like no money going into video game education at all right now. The government drives a lot of that. The government puts grants and Yeah. So
and I wouldn't expect them to, but I would think maybe I don't know, maybe YouTube channels like ours could at least get people interested in the history of how these games were made and the thought process that goes into it. And I mean, that's what continues to be my primary motivation in playing old video games is I am learning about the people who made them and their artistic process, and I learn myself from that artistic process. And I value the work that they made for that reason. Maybe that's the key. Maybe the key is providing a human element into it. What was that guy thinking when he made this? Versus, I'm just going to play this old game to be entertained and wowed and awed. If that's your reason for going to see movies, I want to be awed by something, which a lot of people, that is the reason why they go see
modern movies.
You don't watch
not old movies.
You don't go watch, freaking King Kong 1920.
Right.
You go see something now because you won't be awed by that. But you can still get so much value from just learning the creative process of the limitations at the time, especially like how did they pull off something that awed people who had never seen something like that before.
You know what I find
I love that
kind of telling with all of this is that when you can get somebody to step back who was who is immersed in the modern 3D video game kind of system. There's a few people on our channel who've said that they've, through what we have talked about and through the things that we've shown, that they have gotten a love for older content. Often it's like PS1, Super NES, right?
Yeah.
NES, Atari, right? The real old, what would you call them? The
one or two
pioneers of the video game industry.
To silent film.
Exactly. It's more equivalent to silent film. Is more like, those aren't really the ones people get into. It's the Super NES and the PlayStation. That's where the real artistic creativity happens. But I still, it's almost as if like what you're saying is true, but it has its limits. That people are willing to go back and to find the inspiration, but they're only willing to go back so
But they still have
far.
that level of entertainment.
Because exactly, because once you start playing some of those Atari games and most of the NES games, you're just like, okay, this really just isn't good on so many levels, on so many objective levels, right? And I don't know. That's it's funny because the NES Classic still sells out on the shelves, right?
That's actually,
but the SNES Classic is what I'm waiting for.
SNES. Well, that's true. That's actually the point.
That'll be an easy
okay.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
So I feel like you have things like Beowulf, for example,
right?
Is
the oldest known English.
Is not remarkable because
story.
it's
great.
It's not that good of a story, really. But it was.
But it was as far as we know. And so
at one point.
It's being able to point to the evolution of, like, for example, you look at some pre-Renaissance European painting and you go like, dude, this perspective is so jacked. These people all look flat. You can see all their arms and they don't look like they're making contact with the ground and all those issues.
They almost feel like HD hieroglyphics. It's like a little bit better.
It's like I'm in a 2D world, man. Yeah, and then you kind of hit the painters that actually gave some depth and some more dynamic kind of like contrast to like the light feels like it's light and it lit this wall up and this and you hit that point and I feel like if we're drawing parallels with video games, there's ways to appreciate that art, but not be like floored by like this looks freaking real.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I think
you look
takes
at cave paintings in like the mountains of France and from 30,000 years ago.
And right now,
and they actually do a good freaking job of drawing like the lion's head and the buffalo and all the
and then they do the thumb in the juice and they put the mane around.
And then they bless the child or whatever. But yeah, it actually does look pretty good.
So
but it's only by the standards.
Right. Those have the advantage of being like so crazy old that it blows your mind to just hear how old it is. Like, oh, that's old. Or even painting like pre-Renaissance, like kind of, I don't know, less art with less depth to it. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, but that was still as like 1,000 years old. Like that's crazy. Nobody's floored when they hear like, like oh dang, back in the 80s, man, or back in the 70s. It just doesn't hit people the same way, Right. And someday it will. But we're not there, so people are taking it for granted. And that's the dangerous part, because the people who take it for granted, like freaking Jim Ryan, I'm sure you're a good guy. I don't want to like diss you too much.
We know you're watching.
We know you're watching this. But it takes people to stand out and be like, no, I can see ahead. This is going to be important at some point. And it's those people who preserved a lot of the crap we have today, besides things that were just accidentally preserved,
Right.
But it's the people that are like going to lengths to like mummify something, for example, is the only freaking reason why we have something preserved in whatever state. So it's up to like people like us, like you're saying with the YouTube channel, or anybody who cares to stand up and freaking do it.
Yeah. Right.
Now, if a company's going to legally come in and try to sue the pants off of you and stop you from doing it, at this point, I don't know what we can do besides try and get the laws changed. Mm-hmm. But it falls on people like right now to make sure that crap's not.
I think that's where like public domain was supposed to come in and allow people to have access to stuff.
But blame Disney for not allowing that.
Freaking Disney. And so because of Disney, Nintendo is never going to not have complete creative control over anything that happens with all of their IPs dating back like forever.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It makes sense just because I was raised in that world. It makes sense to me. Like, oh, it's their thing. They should have it. But that's not how it's been. Yeah, that's a recent development.
Yeah.
Things became intellectual property usually just within not too long after the author of it died.
Well,
right?
I think it was currently author's death plus 70 years.
Plus 70.
But basically, it's like, when did Walt Disney die?
It was author's death plus
years?
20, but since Walt Disney died, and it keeps getting pushed back. And that's funny because Disney doesn't even make Mickey Mouse movies anymore. Like they don't.
I know they do nothing with Mickey Mouse,
really,
except
like,
for
sometimes
theme
little
parks.
Children's things.
It's a theme park thing. It's a costume thing.
But they're like
an icon.
Yeah, it's our icon.
The silhouette of the
hat
circle, the circle, black circle with 2 black circles, and then the words Mickey in front of it. You know what I mean? It's like that icon is apparently worth, obviously worth something, but
it almost sounds like that's what is missing. That's what needs to be brought back for the sake of these old things.
Right?
Is the older public domain laws?
Yeah,
that enabled that
true.
Kind of work to be widespread.
What if when like Shigeru Miyamoto died and like 20 years later, it was like totally legal to emulate freaking Mario?
I guess that's the question. Is it Miyamoto who owns
or is it
Mario, or is it Nintendo? And is it and how do you measure
they still
that?
Have to have people attached to it. Not a patent or a trademark attorney.
Any of the patent attorneys out there
about this?
Let us know what the deal is with that.
So,
but yeah.
Anyway, there we go. That's our take on
a few potential solutions
on game preservation. What do you guys think?
Okay,
should
just
games
one
be
more
preserved?
Thing. Should they be yes or no?
You know the poll.
Another poll.
It makes me think of Grandma though, where she's like, "Oh, here's the newspaper headline. This is when JFK was shot." And it's like, "Dang, this is crazy!" And you like flip through it.
Yeah, that's mind blowing.
I love looking at old ads, because it's like, what the heck? But like, if someone didn't hold on to that paper, somebody a week later was like, "This is trash," and threw away because in their context, that was trash.
It was.
According to Jim Ryan, that's trash, man. Who cares about that president? We have a new president.
Check it. Get rid of this crap. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up because nobody ever thinks about it at the time. Nobody's ever thinking about that.
It's way later, and that's why these things become like collector's items and stuff. It's not because you have it and you held on to it forever, and now it's because everyone else threw theirs away. Sure, you held on to it, good job for you, but it's really everyone else who threw theirs away that made your copy so valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like the weirdest thing ever. It's like when in 1927 when the Jazz Singer came out, screw all silent films. But maybe 10, 20, 30 years later, people maybe have looked back at that. Like when Singin' in the Rain came out, for instance, in the 50s, 60s. And it was like, oh, silent films were actually pretty cool, But that's, 40 years later, and they're already all destroyed now.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we were doing this kind of crap?
Yeah, holy crap.
I thought they all sucked.
Let's move the camera now.
Man, yeah, that's actually a good point. How many silent films are basically totally eradicated from existence?
Probably 99%.
No one can ever see this thing that a bunch of people got excited about.
Yeah.
And they went to the theater and went to see it together, and they talked about it afterwards.
You got on the organ.
Somebody played
that
with
whole
the
experience that people had and got excited about and liked and discussed cannot be appreciated in any sense ever again.
Influenced how they thought and why they made maybe certain decisions farther down the road about how the world
No one
works.
will ever know about that ever again, except for the people who have it in living memory, and those people are almost all dead now.
Basically, yeah.
So that sucks.
Yeah, that sucks.
We can't let that happen with freaking Crystallis. You know what I mean? We can't let that happen with Dragon Quest. Like, you got to be able to hold on to that stuff and pass it on and see how far we've come and what people thought and how they made
to
things.
preserve crap that's on a CD. You have to be able to rip it off the CD.
Yes.
You can put that CD in a vault and never open it and have no oxygen. Yeah,
and it would still break. Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Moving on to Ojo Cinco or Ojo Cinco. He wants to know what we think about Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. He says he personally finds the games to be great. What are your thoughts? Do you think it deserves a Switch title, or are you guys not fans of the entries?
I was so upset when the first one came out. I was upset
because we had Nintendo systems and the 64 didn't get a Final Fantasy.
Oh, that's funny.
And we were hoping that with the GameCube we'd get Final Fantasy X. And we got Final Fantasy Chronicles with these little baby-looking, big-eyed little chibi kids running around.
Yeah, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I liked it. I liked it even when it was originally released.
I was pissed.
It was kind of the whole Wind Waker thing. It's like, is this Nintendo now? Everything Nintendo is chibi and childish. Like that. Oh, I was so mad.
I really, really liked it. I didn't beat it, but I loved the idea of the game, which is that this miasma, this like poisonous mist has like kind of come over the land, and you have this little crystal that you take. Like all the villages have them that sort of like create barriers around the villages, but you take it with you in your little, I forget what the name of the vessel is that they take it in, but it creates a little shield around you, and you go through the level with this thing, and you fight, and you can't like walk outside of the shield. Like it was just a really interesting idea, and I liked the fact that it was multiplayer and that you could, you have a team of people that are going through these dungeons and stuff like that. That like sort of world and idea I thought was super intriguing. And I ended up playing the 2 that came out on the DS. There was one of them, I think it was called Ring of Fates. That was a single player one, and another one called Echoes of something.
Yeah,
Echoes of Time.
I have that one in my place.
Echoes of Time was the multiplayer one, so you could do like local play with somebody who's in the same room. And Parker and I played the Echoes of Time a bit. We didn't get too far in that one. I played all the way through Rings of Fate and enjoyed it for what it was. It was, it had some cheesy dialogue and stuff, but I thought it was okay. I don't remember anything about it, to be honest. It's obviously not the most memorable thing I've ever played, but I enjoyed it. The only one I haven't really touched is the one that came on the Wii. It was Crystal Chronicles.
Well, My Life is King. Did you play that one?
My Life is King's
That's
awesome.
the best.
It was actually
My Life is King.
Yeah,
Freaking
it's a whole different
cool.
kind of thing.
At least for the first 100 days, and then it becomes boring as fetch after
Right, because you're... Yeah.
But the first 100 days are awesome.
That's the first digital
that
game
one's
that
fun.
I purchased. I'm pretty sure.
Me too. I think so.
Yeah.
I had never bought a game.
Or actually, no, you bought it. I just played yours after you bought it.
Yeah, My Life is King was awesome. That's probably my favorite out of all of them. But no, there was another one that came out, and it didn't have that same look to it. The characters were designed a little bit more in an anime style.
They don't look like Teletubbies?
It was Crystal Chronicles, Crystal Bearers, I think it was called.
Crystal Bearers?
Had like a blonde kid on the front with some like wavy hair. That did not get good reviews, but I have still always wanted to try it. Overall, it's not my favorite thing, but I have enjoyed the ones that I have played, at least, to some extent. Like, I haven't hated any of them, and I've had a good time with all of them. But that being said, I'm certainly not holding out for any like new one to come out. It's not like a huge priority for me. Like, oh man, when's the next Crystal Chronicles game coming out? Like,
if there's a Final Fantasy game coming to the Switch, I hope it's Final Fantasy 15, 16, 7 remake, any of those, not Crystal Chronicles 10 or whatever. That would just be my hope. But I played those games a little bit, but not very much. I did not. I wasn't drawn to them as much.
I liked the mechanics. So I think like in terms of just like utility to playing the game, I think that they were really quite solid. It's just the like world and story and like that part of it, which is traditionally a very big part of what Final Fantasy games are. Not all the offshoots. I know there's like Chocobo Dungeon and things like that, but I'm saying like when you hear Final Fantasy, people expect something with a strong narrative, and I don't think that any of the Crystal Chronicles games have strong narrative or plot, while they do have interesting worlds. So, but I enjoyed the utility of playing. I enjoyed leveling up. I enjoyed how the combat worked. I enjoyed the idea of like being limited to, at least in the GameCube game, that little like bubble shield. I liked the fact that you could play with friends if you wanted to. There was a lot to enjoy, for sure, but it's not among my top priority of things I'm excited about in future. So, good question.
I would play another game like My Life is King.
My Life is King was great.
My Life is King was
awesome.
I thought they were. I thought they were doing that with that other Crystal Chronicles, like but it was all a tower defense game. Yeah. You played as some some lady demon. Some like woman, like a female like demon or something. But it was a tower defense, which I was not expecting, and I didn't play longer than about 5 minutes. So I'm not a big tower defense guy. It's not my thing. Anyways, so I guess that's the one, if you want to count that as Crystal Chronicles games I didn't like. But it's not because it's bad. It's because I don't like tower defense. Okay, William Diaz, what are your guys' favorite video game storylines or lore?
I really, really got into the Elder Scrolls lore when I was playing Skyrim. I downloaded an ebook.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, an ebook with all the books.
It had all the books in the game.
Oh, all the books that you find as you go around the empty villages.
I would, because like you read them sometimes out of context. Like you kind of would have to.
Or you read the middle ones first before.
Right. Yeah, and so this had them all in volumes.
Fetching blew my mind. Cool. That book that talks about, what are they called? The Akaviri, which are like the snake people from like the far north,
or maybe not, snake shaped, because some accounts.
Oh yeah, people they conflict. They don't know what they actually.
Oh,
but they
had cool.
Originally invaded Skyrim in some like
so
ancient past. When I read about that, I was like, "Holy crap, that's awesome!" I think that the Elder Scrolls in particular has a very deep lore, a lot of mystery around that.
Okay, so really cool. The Elder Scrolls concept of planets, it's been so long since I've read any of this, but their whole thing about those being, they're kind of like their own realms in some sense, their own realities. I don't know if that's not the right word for it exactly, but there was some description of why they're spherical, being not like they're not like planets as we understand them. It was super freaking trippy, and I have to reread it because I'm like totally butchering it right now. But they just thought about crap that was just in no way actually even related to the game at all, but was just as fascinating to read.
Yeah,
and so that was super cool. But I wish they had just come out with that like ebook themselves. Yeah, because in the game, it's just. It's all scattered, and I ended up downloading a mod that showed me which books I had already read or not, so they would glow differently. Because you just open a book, did I get a skill? No. Open a book, did I get a skill? No. Did I get a skill? No. But then when you read the ones that give you skills, I love how they're like relevant to the skill that you got, and it's like a story about a dude who learned how to like steal some crap from somebody, and you're like stealthman up or whatever. Like,
nice.
That's so cool. But anyways, I really like the Elder Scrolls lore, even though I feel like I read a lot about it, but I still feel like I don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
And I think because in kind of a genius sort of way, like there is stuff that conflicts because their history is written by different people, and you're getting their perspectives, or they is hearsay or whatever. And so, which is like a genius way to like not be too clear about everything, but kind of make it feel like real in the way that it's like, well, I don't know, maybe, these guys thought the situation was this, and these guys interpreted it a different way because they're from a different region that was impacted differently or whatever. But I wonder, however, like how legit or how in order they actually keep that stuff, because it seems so complicated to me. They have to just have like lore master dudes like on hand that like strictly keep all that crap straight. Because anyone who gets way into it, I can see that going off the rails like real fast.
The lore, man.
Yeah, exactly. Just because there's just so much to it. I think that ebook, I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds of pages.
It was awesome.
Of crap.
I remember reading that a little bit.
That had to take just to generate that content for Skyrim alone is a couple of years, I feel like. To cross-reference it accurately.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
I think obvious answers for me are The Witcher and several different Final Fantasy games. But I think actually, and this too, the Elder Scrolls. But I think in terms of like, because what I'll do, in games today, they'll put a little exclamation mark next to things you haven't read in your journal or your inventory or your codec or whatever it is. And I hate having icons. Because
notifications,
I just gotta like make sure that I've seen that, so that I don't have like a list of 300 things with icons next to them later that I'm like damn. So I just gotta glance at them in order to get that icon to go away, because I have OCD about that. But the games that have inspired me to actually read them are the Elder Scrolls. I did it quite a bit in Final Fantasy 13. But a lot of that information wasn't being provided through the game, so I was feeling lost about what's going on. And then The Witcher, I've read a lot into that. But in all three of those examples, I still did a lot of the just read and skip to get rid of the thing, because I wasn't super interested. But there is one game series in which I have read every single codec all the way through, and that's Mass Effect. Like Mass Effect's lore, background and history stuff, and the stuff that details the histories of the aliens races and the culture and like the ships even and weapons and like all that stuff, for whatever reason, Mass Effect captivated me to such an extent that I wanted to consume every single piece of that.
Well, because I read all the entries in the first Mass Effect as well. And I think that they were put together in a way that you believed them.
Yes.
Like they felt like they had scientific backing for, like, these dudes are, the Volus are like ammonia-based life forms. And that's why they have these suits.
That was cool.
It's like, that's a real concept, right?
It feels real. It's crazy.
It's just very, they just killed it. Whoever was responsible for that.
Drew Karpyshyn, if it was you, which I think it was, dude is an unbelievable beast, because not only that, I read his freaking novels too. Like the novels he read that were outside of the games. Like everything that dude writes, I feel I just am fascinated by.
Which makes it so sad that the series appears to have gone off the rails a little bit.
Because he left BioWare.
Yeah, it's just like,
in the middle of Mass Effect 3.
Now what are you going to do with all his Mass Effect knowledge?
Well, yeah, I'd say Mass Effect I'd have to say is my favorite, just because of the effort I've put into reading all that stuff. Like, I really wanted to consume everything I could surrounding that. So that's probably my favorite.
I liked Mass Effect 2. I played a lot of the first game, and then I watched Mike play the first part of the second game. But I haven't played like all the way through.
Yeah,
I haven't read all of the stuff, but I really liked the lore for Mass Effect as well. This one's kind of hard for me.
Well,
kids got to be Kingdom Hearts.
KH.
I do. I like it. Yeah, the Kingdom Hearts lore and storylines. But the problem is, I still don't know that much about it,
which is insane to be able to say that.
To compare that with Mass Effect, right? It's like, okay, Mass Effect, like you were saying, a lot of it's believable. You kind of get why it happened, even though it's like, hey, ammonia-based life forms. You may not really be familiar with the concept, but you can go look it up. Like, it has real world roots, and and that makes sense. And whereas for Kingdom Hearts, it's like whatever they specifically tell you, that's all that you know, really. And I like it. I like the lore and storylines, but I can't say that it's like
your favorite way.
It's my favorite because I have no idea what happened before or after certain events. Whereas I much prefer things like Final Fantasy 12, where they talk about like the ancient past, like the ancient past, and you get to really know like the deep history of all of this kind of stuff. Whereas Kingdom Hearts doesn't quite do that to the same extent, or if they do, it's just really vague.
Or every time they provide an answer, they also provide another
There's a question, exactly. And so I love Kingdom Hearts lore, and especially the more I get into it, it's really cool, and it has a lot of like real world application too. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily my favorite because I'm like super big into history. And I don't know the history of Kingdom Hearts basically at all. I don't know the history of any of the worlds, any of the planets, even going back to like the phone game. It's like, apparently that was all a dream. So that didn't actually happen. Sorry, I'm just kind of giving away a little too much. My apologies. You play Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But it's just so vague as to what's real and what's not. And that's a theme in Kingdom Hearts. So it's not like they're at fault for it. But because of that, I just have a hard time knowing what's real and what's not real. Yeah. Therefore, I much prefer stuff based in the world of Ivalice, stuff like Mass Effect.
Ivalice lore is amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I like how they keep returning to it in multiple game entries. And Final Fantasy doesn't, I mean, unless you have like Final Fantasy Lightning Returns, they go back to the 13, I guess, or 10-2, goes back to 10. Somebody was saying they might be making a 10-3 after Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but that's way
10 off. Was so popular, man.
That's way off. Yeah. Next to 7, I think 10 is the biggest one that they've had. But stuff like that, I mean, it's funny because I get way into this kind of stuff, but at the same time, I don't get like too into it in the games. So, I haven't gotten super enveloped into lore, and I didn't play Skyrim as much as you guys either. I only played it for, honestly, 4 or 5 hours total of all my play sessions. And,
So, this might go a little bit with what you're saying, but I remember playing Red Dead Redemption and getting, like really interested in what level of technology they were presenting at the time, for one, because there's machine guns and crap. I'm like, okay,
it's basically like
when was the first like machine gun, right? And I started looking crap up, and it's
first
not
machine
like
gun was on the battlefield of what is that?
Last Samurai.
Last Samurai. The very first ever unveiled machine gun right there. Freaking kill what's his name?
Took out
Ken Watanabe.
Ken Watanabe.
Ken Watanabe's dead.
Samurai Ken Watanabe.
What was his name?
I was on those
not
off his head.
Katsumoto was the other one.
Oh, Katsumoto. I think it was Katsumoto.
He was Katsumoto?
I think it was him. Yeah.
Anyways,
because they go Katsumoto.
So stuff like that I like when you can connect it to like, did they get this right? And I love when they do. Because it's supposed to be our world, and so like I don't know if that's in that way it can connect to quote unquote
real history.
The real life lore, dude.
Real life lore.
Like Neo, right?
But just like I was actually just reading a bunch of stuff about cowboys recently. I'm trying to remember why. I went off on like a crazy tangent, and I was like looking up crap about what did cowboys eat and like all this stuff because
I'll tell you what they didn't eat. They didn't eat rabbits because apparently like lean protein sources you can get freaking like I think they call it protein poisoning or something.
Really?
Like that. So like people who lived on rabbits, even though they were consuming enough calories, were basically having the same deficiency as if they were like malnourished.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like you got to get your
you got to get protein from not lean
something that has
meat,
more fat,
but yeah, the fat is important.
That's interesting. Or you just got to eat your citrus, dude, and then. But crap! I tried. Somebody was talking about like historical portrayals of cowboys and how like cowboys have been shown like in like Hollywood to have been predominantly white, but that the ethnic distributions were much more like a third of them were like. It was like 15% were black and 50% were Hispanic,
Mexican,
and then there was all kinds of like Chinese weren't technically allowed to be like cowboys as we consider them, but they were often cooks and they were like building the railroad, all that kind of crap. Which I actually feel like Red Dead Redemption actually did a decent job of showing a wider variety than you traditionally see. But anyways. I guess that's lore-ish, but I love games that prompt me to go,
research.
Go dig into something real. And I mean, I guess more recently, like William Adams and Neo.
Yeah, that's true.
But what I always find is that, like they just got all this crap wrong.
They just like barely based it on it.
Yeah,
barely.
That's funny.
Which is too bad because I think that the real history of that man is more interesting.
When you have a story that's already that insane.
The fantastical elements that they put in the game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess you could just go around like making deals with people, learning Japanese.
Yeah, man. What if they had a game that taught you Japanese from the perspective of a freaking Irishman
like a dude who
had no idea what Japanese was, and all these people talking Japanese to him? And it's like you got to fetching learn how to speak Japanese.
Because in the game, he's
that would be a cool
talking
game.
To people right off the bat.
Yeah, because he gets magical powers.
Okay,
like basically like he gets what are they called? The yokai.
The gift
that helps him interpret basically. Okay, gotcha. He speaks in English.
And then they can understand.
But he understands
their Japanese.
But you know what? That's not true in some instances. Is it? I don't know.
Well, I remember he comes up and he meets the famous ninja Hattori Hanzo, right? And he's speaking English.
He's just
speaking
English
bro, I didn't speak English.
But like I remember he needed to have something interpreted for somebody else, or maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it's that what he says has to be interpreted to the guy, but he understands what he's saying. Anyways, he doesn't speak Japanese at all.
Okay, yeah, that's funny. You know what? I think I have an answer though. What's I haven't actually played basically any of these games, but freaking Lord of the Rings games. As long as there's one game that incorporates the history of Lord of the Rings, then that game has the best history.
That game has best lore.
Best lore. Right there, War in the North, or
just actually playing some more of Shadows of Mordor.
Oh, Shadows of Mordor.
Oh, you were?
And just recently, and it's what I love is that they ran, from what I've seen, which is I don't know, probably like it's less than 10 hours of the game, but they run so well in parallel with the other stuff that. They're not like dirtying the water, so to speak. Like they're not taking a character you care about and being like, they did this, and you're like, no, they didn't.
Unless Celebrimbor a little bit, right?
That is true. Except
when I heard about his connection, I was like, really?
It is a little weird. But it feels, I don't know.
It still somehow is good. I don't know how. The game is good somehow. I can't explain it.
Well, I think it's partly because you just don't know that's who it is for long enough. And then it's like, oh, it's him, and then he's like here involuntarily.
At least it wasn't like Aragorn or Legolas.
Exactly. I mean, like, they got away from it in an interesting
Because Celebrimbor he's not super well fleshed out.
Right.
He's just there.
Also, I mean, the one thing you take issue with is like the whole idea of like him even being a wraith.
But, yeah, exactly. That's me.
Like
it is what it is.
It is.
But I would say maybe like one of the sons of Fëanor, like Maedhros or somebody. Like because
would make a little more
he
sense.
had jumped into he killed himself. He jumped into fire while going after one of the Silmarils, right? And he had already had his arm cut off. The whole Fëanor lineage was cursed.
Was he the one that threw himself into the pit, or was he the one that threw himself into the water to see?
Oh,
one of the brothers threw himself into the sea.
He's the one with one arm. I believe Maedhros went into the fire, and then the other dude. Sorry,
you got to read these books again now.
The other dude fell into the water. His older brother, but Maedhros was the second born. And he had lost his arm because he couldn't hold the Silmarils, right? But anyways, and he held it and it was burning him and he jumped into fire and killed himself. He could become a wraith. That makes more sense. And also his father and their lineage was all cursed. But Celebrimbor, anyways, it's just kind of weird. So
he was just a ring.
We're into the lore stuff there. Just one of the 9 kings.
I really like that game, though. I can't explain it. It has terrible ending.
It's the gameplay. I'm not like huge on the gameplay per se.
Don't know why.
It
was just so satisfying. It's like
I like the story though.
It's actually out of orcs.
That seems so cool. I've heard about it. It seems pretty cool.
Like I played this freaking game, and then I go back to Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, you could have had.
You know what's funny?
It's not that much more expensive.
I switched Breath of the Wild to Japanese. I did the update, and I
haven't tried that yet.
I did it, and I watched it. Went through all the memories and watched them all, and it's fine. The voice acting's better, but now their lips don't match. With what they're saying.
I don't think their lips match anyway.
They match better. I feel like they did. Maybe. I don't know. They don't match.
That's the thing, though. People think anime is like, it's synced up to the Japanese
and it's like,
words.
No,
it's not. They're just talking.
But it's pretty off, and that was a hard thing for me. But the voice acting was better. It's more palatable, but then it didn't look right. You know?
I feel like it's way off sometimes in the English.
Yeah.
I feel like it is way off.
I'll have to watch them again in English then.
Because, sometimes it's like, or you could tell they were rushing to finish this sentence before the character was like done moving their mouth.
Close its mouth.
But Shadows of Mordor is a really good example. Though,
the voice acting.
You can have great voice acting on what is probably a smaller budget. Than like the biggest AAA games. I'm sure it had. It's WB, so I'm sure it had a sizable budget.
Probably,
but it was a new thing. It was an existing property, so they could tap into that. So that's probably why they had a larger budget than maybe most new games.
Okay, I haven't looked this up.
Right, because a lot of that budget probably had to go towards licensing.
Yeah. But the voice acting is great.
It's like perfect. Great. Like there's not a character that stands out to me that's I can do without that. It's all the delivery's phenomenal. And I haven't looked this up, but who does Gollum? Because
it's pretty close.
Spoiler alert, but
Gollum's in it.
Spoiler.
He's
in Mordor.
He's almost spot on. Andy Serkis, like just closing my eyes, listen to him, and it's like
it's very close.
Dang,
it's very close.
Like it's not just like mimicking the tone or anything. It's like the intonation. Like the guy's really it's very good.
So when the voice cracks and when he does that low back of the throat, that's funny.
I mean, you can tell it's not because of course it's not. Yeah, but it is real close.
It's really close. Anyways, it's
so possible. Shadow of War is going to be at E3, by the way.
Oh, right. We didn't talk about
I've heard that recently.
That was one we didn't talk about yet.
It was supposed to come out in August, and now it's coming out in October.
So in October.
Okay.
That's fine. Just
a few months. Game looks so
But sick. That will be, and you should be playable at E3 as well. They should have a demo.
I would love to play
I'm more confused by the scenario of that game.
I know.
Shadows of Mordor.
It's crazy. There's a whole Civil War going on.
Yeah, I guess they were all... But, this dude ran a whole army.
But you can, freaking ride dragons and stuff. Like, that's so sick.
Oh, yeah.
The freaking... It makes no sense to me with how much I adore Tolkien lore and how really his themes are all pretty anti-violence really.
Right.
And this game is super indulgent on violence. It is not at all congruent with what, but I love it somehow still.
It's it really okay, but that's what Peter Jackson injected into Tolkien.
That's true.
Peter Jackson brought because Peter Jackson's all about the beheadings. He's all about which is in Lord of the Rings, but usually only being done by the other guys.
It's not cool.
It's meant to horrify you. It's meant to be like, oh my gosh, these things are horrible, the evil.
I think the closest thing the movies come to, and this was a deleted scene, this is only in the extended edition, but in the Two Towers when Faramir shoots the dude off the Oliphant as it's rampaging through the forest, and then he comes and he looks at him and he's like,
Who did he have a family? Did he have a Where name? Did he come from?
Yeah, was he actually even evil?
That was a good moment.
I don't know.
Was he forced to do this?
Yeah, like, which is funny because
but I have a job to do and I have to kill him. It's like
but those guys were the Haradrim.
Yeah,
they were like human, quote unquote. So it's funny because that compassionate moment would have never ever come for an
You're
orc.
right.
Like, been like, this orc's had a hard go. Like he's got all these scars. Like what was life's like.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Exactly. That's kind of.
But anyways, the interrogating dudes and then just being like, "Okay, I got my information," and then stab, flip, and then your head's gone, and there's just blood going everywhere.
Dude, it is so violent, just like absolutely like grotesquely violent. And it is awesome.
I was reading recently, apparently a lot of people took issue with the use of interrogation in that game because they felt like it was sending the wrong message, because it is always a good idea to do it in that game. There's there's never a downside to doing that.
You learn to torture someone and get info out of them.
And the way they're tortured,
like
it's not like torturing. Because it probably would have been worse if it was like if you were twisting a knife.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like physically painful much. It is like
it's a mental thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then he always kills him afterwards.
And then you just kill him.
But the idea that torturing was. Or it's whatever.
That was a hot political thing back about 4 or 5 years ago, the CIA and everything, right?
Yeah, and so the idea that this game is making people think like, oh yeah, good idea. Do it. Anyways, how moral is it to suggest that you're going to get valid information every time you do this? Or, but we don't have rates.
Mind reading is probably more accurate than
exactly.
The spiritual
it's more direct connection, right?
It's a little far fetched, but
that reminds me of that scene in the Hobbit of all freaking movies, the second one, where it's Thranduil, and they've got like an orc prisoner, and Legolas and that chick had brought him in, and the orc's like, you're all gonna die, and then Thranduil cuts his head off, and then Legolas is like, why did you do that? Why did you kill him? And I remember seeing that and being like, whoa, that's the weirdest. This is a weird.
Well, because then he's twitching. He gets cut off, and his body's on the ground, like flopping around.
And Legolas was like, we could have got more info out of him or something. But it was like, and then Thranduil was like, there's nothing more he could have told me. Puts his sword back and he walks away. But thinking of that in terms of Shadows of Mordor, right? And the whole interrogation and then killing him after, because was very frowned upon, and even Peter Jackson's world is like, oh, don't do that. And then Mordor, it's just like...
Thranduil didn't want to reveal he was a wraith in front of his son. Otherwise he would have mind-melded him and been like, tell me what you know.
Sometimes with the orcs, it's almost like you're putting them out of their misery, so to speak. It's almost like they're miserable beings. Like in Tolkien's lore, it's like they're not supposed to be this. And they've been twisted to become
that was in Two Towers. When Gimli's like... tell us what happened and we shall ease your passing. And when Aragorn falls off the cliff. After the war,
because he's like
little friend, take a tumble off the cliff, and Gimli's like, I'll kill you. Like, I will do you a favor. I will ease your passing if you tell us what happened. That's fine.
And then he doesn't do it. He ends up just
that's true. They never
spasming it. Died.
He just you didn't do anything, Gimli. You're ashamed. Shame upon all dwarves.
Next time, start a Lord of the Rings lore podcast.
Yeah, dude. We should. Dark Pixel Lord of the Rings lore podcast. Every Friday morning.
Mix between the movies and the books. That would be way fun, but...
We did like a book club.
Oh, yeah.
Around like
that was
8 or 9 years ago. We were doing synchronized reading of basically everything. Silmarillion. We did Children of Herne because that was new at the time.
Yeah.
There's no...
Now there's Baron and Luthien.
Yeah, Baron and Luthien.
Yeah, Chris Tolkien just...
I'm so skeptical of those, though. That's Chris Tolkien all the way.
Did you read Children of Herne?
I did.
But Children of Herne is a great book.
It's great. I really like it.
It's really, really good.
But
me and Mike were talking about that.
I hate it being sold as like, this is J.R.R. Tolkien's lost thing, because it's like he wrote
filled
a
in the
story.
Gaps, yeah.
But I swear it's 90% Chris Tolkien. And he's a good writer.
And he's a very good writer.
Selling it as his father like is a little like... I don't know.
It's true. It should likely say based on.
Well, because they've been doing that with so much of his crap, and he was real prolific. He wrote a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's even the Silmarillion, to be completely honest, is a little bit of a stretch.
Because that's all there. After he's dead.
But Chris Tolkien, as editor, made a lot of decisions about like timeline and all that kind of crap. So
it's true.
At
but
this point,
if
I guess we just have to admit that we're in Chris Tolkien's hands.
If anyone were to do it, he knew his father best, and that's kind of like.
And we don't know how much of this was orally, transferred to him.
Oh, true, because he used to tell stories.
Even if Tolkien never wrote the direct timeline down, did he tell him what it was?
Right, and that's where you gotta.
Yeah.
But
he didn't tell him dialogue.
Yeah.
For
I was
conversation between Seiros or whatever his name is, the elf that he throws the goblet in his face. He didn't tell him what that dialogue was word for word. You know.
Right. I always think about that in any history that I read, or you you read some stuff in the New Testament, for example, and there's a long passage of chapters and chapters, and he said all this, and I'm I couldn't what are we just talking about right now?
Transcribing every single word he said,
and be like, dang man, I'm recreating this. But it's just the authorship is so much more.
Even the different books of the New Testament, they conflict on.
They're slightly
exactly
different.
What is said.
Yeah,
exactly. The wording is not the same.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's true.
So,
which
I guess we just have to trust Christopher Tolkien.
Trust them and just read. It's a good book. Just read it.
It's just great
Children
book.
of Huron's a good book. We haven't read Beren and Luthien yet, but that's an
I've heard people like Beren, and it's great to have Beren and Luthien more fleshed out in a more accessible form.
Because
you don't have to read all
one
the Silmarillion
or two chapters.
That was the first story. Maybe not in terms of the idea of the world order, but the first story he wrote
with his life.
In his life.
The
first story in Middle Earth that
World
he wrote.
War I.
See, and now you can instead of telling people, "Hey, go read the Silmarillion" to get these poems, just read Beren and Luthien.
You can read that one.
Then read Lord of the Rings, and most of those will make sense.
And you can skip the poems.
And you can skip.
They're talking about this. I read that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on.
Yeah. I was watching the Lord of the Rings movies in Spanish.
Right.
2 days ago with Tanner.
Nice.
That was actually the most fun I've had watching those movies in a long time.
You gotta watch them in Spanish.
He bought it for me.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that crazy?
That's cool.
It was his idea. But yeah, it was the most fun I've had watching those movies in more than 10 years. Because it was new, and again, it was just those movies are so good.
Do you remember that website that was all the mistranslations of Lord of the Rings and all these other languages, and one of them was Vietnamese or something?
Yeah,
and they had that one line that was something
the
about
hills
the
will
hills
swamp
with
over
ox.
with ox.
Yeah, after they leave Moria.
By nightfall, these hills will be swarming with ox.
Which he says in a funny way, anyways,
exactly.
in English. We'll swamp with ox.
Well, because he was faking a British accent.
They didn't have any volcano bake meat, did they?
No, volcano bake. That's the Pokemon one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some Pokemon game that was translated in Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And there was you go into the kitchen and someone says something about volcano bake meat.
Volcano bake meat.
Well, it was translated into Vietnamese, but then translated back into English from the Vietnamese.
And that's what this was too.
That's what the problem was.
Yeah. So funny.
I can't wait to have some volcano bake meat after this podcast.
Oh gosh! All right,
okay, we should probably move on.
We gotta move on.
Off on lore for
that was our impromptu topic.
Thank you. Yeah, William Diaz. That was
Ace
really good.
C. What do you guys feel to be the most overrated RPG and why?
Oh, overrated. Oh, I thought this was underrated. Okay, overrated. So let's define the terms now.
Okay, so
what is overrated?
We've talked about this on previous podcasts. We have a lot of new people.
We haven't talked about it for a
while,
though, huh?
Right? It's been a long time. So I have in the past taken umbrage with the term overrated. I don't like it because I don't feel like it is a direct criticism. I feel like it's a blanket statement.
It's just used too often by people.
And I feel like it's just used as a way to be like, oh, that game's over, as a dismissal without using the critical thought to
form an actual argument.
And an argument.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I don't like it. Now, I'm not saying anything about UAC. You're fine. You can use it all you want.
Yeah.
So I'm not at all opposed to the fact that you asked this question. I would just personally rather rephrase it to be something more like, what acclaimed RPGs do I personally not like as much as most people do? So if we put it that way, I'd say Persona 4. But I haven't beaten Persona 4, so I can't really say that. I've only really played the beginning hours of it. But I really wasn't enamored with it as much as a lot of other people are. In terms of games I've completed that are real... Because I could also say Disgaea, like the Disgaea series. I'm just really not into that either. I've watched a lot of H.C. Bailey's, I think it was Disgaea 5 playthrough. And was just... Maybe it wasn't Disgaea 5, maybe it was Disgaea 4. I can't remember. Anyways, it was some Disgaea game I didn't like. But games that I have actually personally played and beaten that I just wasn't a big fan of. Probably Breath of Fire 2 would be one. I've played quite a bit of it. I haven't beaten it, but I played quite a bit of that. And I watch you play a lot of it. Breath of Fire 2 I'm not a huge fan of. And
yeah, I'm trying to. For me, and I've never beaten Final Fantasy VIII, but I've taken a crack at it twice, and it's not that I don't like it, but this probably doesn't even qualify necessarily. But it's just got a lot of stuff that I wouldn't put in an RPG, stuff I don't want to have to mess with. So yeah. Just extra layers of abstraction. I feel like that, like I don't know. I haven't beaten it.
Well,
see, RPGs are so long that if you're not into it,
yeah, you're not
likely to play it.
Exactly.
So maybe we shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't make that distinction. It's just stuff that I tried that I didn't like, and Persona 4 was definitely one of them. And this guy is definitely one of them.
I have one that I wasn't as big a fan of that most people love. It is so funny because you're asking for people to hate you and dislike this video when you say what's an overrated game, because we're talking about a game that we don't like that everyone else does like.
Yeah,
right.
And so that's difficult. But Knights of the Old Republic would probably be there for me.
No, I actually agree with that.
They're good in certain ways.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that.
As a whole, those games are difficult for me to get through.
Yeah,
I would much rather, and I don't know.
I
just don't know. Pre-Mass Effect games based on decision, and even Mass Effect will apply to this one day once we can finally get past the good/evil distinction. It are just really, I don't know, they weren't as good, I guess.
I actually agree with the Knights of the Old Republic thing. Like I've now, I think 2 times started a playthrough of that game and just got real burned out on it pretty quick.
Yeah,
I love Mass Effect, which is funny.
Well, you get to be a Jedi, which is cool.
But, like, I don't know, there's something about the presentation, and I'm not talking about graphics, I'm talking about, like, pacing, dialogue, like, writing, that kind of thing, that just really doesn't captivate me or capture me at all in Knights of the Old Republic. Again, and I talked about this on last week's podcast, I can still admit a game's very good while saying I don't like it. Half-Life 2 fits in that category for me. I think Persona 4 is an outstanding game, especially when it comes to presentation. Very stylish and very well put together. Not my thing. I think Knights of the Republic fits into that category as well as Disgaea or
I would
Breath
say
of Fire 2.
It's not a bad game. I can't.
Yeah, it's just not for me.
It's not for me. And if they were to make a new Knights of the Old Republic, which I've heard that is, they're at least talking about it. I don't know if that'll ever happen. But if they make a new one that incorporates, different mechanics and focuses, more on, building the world and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's cool. That would be awesome. Because it likely wouldn't play the same way. And it's funny because that type of RPG is similar to how Final Fantasy XII is, where you just kind of run up to an enemy and you just kind of like RuneScape style. You're just going and it's auto attack and you're not actually. I mean, you can select things to do, but it's just a little different, which was cool at the time because it allowed you to seamlessly go in and out of battle, right, without having a screen come over and take you somewhere else. But I'm not a huge fan of that.
And I think my distaste, in particular for Knights of the Old Republic, is not due to it being like a CRPG, because I really like Planescape Torment. I'm playing that right now with the Patreon exclusive live streams, and I freaking love that game. So I love. It's not that it's nothing about the genre or style. There's something about, particularly the writing, I think, that I didn't love in Knights of the Old Republic, but that I did love in Mass Effect.
Well, it's just kind of weird.
But I wonder if Drew Karpyshyn actually wrote Knights of the Old Republic. That's a good question. He might have. He might have been a writer on that. So,
well,
I feel like Fallout New Vegas, because that has a lot of Fallout games have RPG stuff in them. But
yeah, totally.
I just couldn't get why people and I have to admit that I quit playing because I glitched into a hill and was stuck in the ground.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, games like that are very prone to glitches.
I enjoyed Fallout 3. I have no desire to ever play Fallout 4.
Okay.
I feel no draw to that whatsoever. The Fallout world, I feel like I got enough of it in 3. I feel like I was just like, okay.
I liked 3.
Everything got nuked, and this was really cool. I ended up getting like really stuck in 3, and I was
Me too.
pissed because I wanted to keep going, and I felt like really stuck. But Fallout New Vegas, the setting, I feel like, I don't know what it is, but I'm just, by that point, I was just over everything's crap and ruined and messed up and radioactive, and the character designs, I felt, I don't know, like there's something about the whole world and the ghouls and the way it all works just felt like I can't really put words to it specifically, but it's almost the tone of the game that I just didn't enjoy as much. Yeah. And so I understand people like that game a lot because there's the whole faction thing, and you can align yourself with the different groups and stuff.
New Vegas, I think, is pretty widely loved. Like, a lot of people love New Vegas, which I was surprised about because I didn't like it as much either.
Yeah. But, that's one for me. And, I mean, again, like, I've had games I haven't enjoyed too terribly much from the first couple hours, but I pushed through, and then I really came to like them. And so that could have
that reminds me of
been one of those games, but I didn't. Once I glitched in that hill and I was stuck, and I didn't want to redo the last half hour to an hour's worth of stuff, and I'm like, all right, I'm done.
A lot of these games I've talked about, I've attempted to play once and didn't like it. Say Persona 4, you know what I mean? But there are, like you're saying, there are a lot of games where I've given a second chance to. It's like, oh, I love this now. It's happened to me a lot. So Persona, that might be the case. I'd actually like to play Persona 5 before trying to play 4 again. But
5 was definitely more up your alley, I think.
But
sounds good.
One game, and I tried Knights of the Republic twice, but one game I have tried at least 4 times to start because I just really wanted to like it was Dragon Age, the first one. And I do not like it. I do not like the story. I do not like the writing. I do not like the character design. I do not like Dragon Age 1 at all.
Do not like Green.
It's not even just like this isn't my thing. It's a mild distaste. I just like really, really, really don't like Dragon Age. I'm interested in trying Inquisition out a bit, but I don't like the first game at all.
You do not like it on a train.
Nope.
You do not like it on a plane.
Nope. Do not like it here.
Do
not
like it here.
So, that's a pretty good list.
Yeah, not bad.
I'm trying to think of like an SNES era RPG that I've tried that I don't like.
Yeah, I tried to think of one too.
I would say Breath of Fire 2 for me.
Yeah. I was borderline on that. I was like, there was enough to it that I liked, and I wanted to. It was mostly like the town and like trying to grow the town and stuff. That was pretty cool. Because I don't know, I'm a sucker for like simulation elements in games like that. But
yeah. Jeez.
A lot of really good SNES RPGs.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to not like them.
This isn't overrated. Now I'm just thinking bad games. Quest 64. Anyways.
That's definitly not overrated.
It might even be underrated.
That is
we actually
rated
beat it.
Rated perfectly.
It's rated.
Perfectly rated.
Oh, boy. All right, AC, that's a good question. Thank you.
Juan Soto bringing us home with the last question. Actually asked this one last week, but he didn't get to it. Oh, by the way, there were quite a few people who asked questions this week that I didn't put on here. I just want you to know it's not because your question wasn't good. There was one example, at least, that I just had no idea how to answer. It was about like how mathematics come into game balance or something like that. And it's just like, I've never made a game before. I cannot tell you.
We'll save that question for when we have a programmer.
Somebody else was asking about, I can't remember now off the top of my head. Anyways, it's not that your question was bad. It was that I didn't feel like I had anything to say about it that would create a good discussion. So it's on me, not on you. So continue asking questions. But this one's from Juan Soto. He says that he recently finished the Final Fantasy VII walkthrough that I did. And he knows that I have great reason for never wanting to do it again. I had so many problems with that freaking LP. It was stupid. My hard drive crashed in the middle of it and lost my save files. And so, luckily, one of my fans is a total beast. Freaking, like, hacked a save file in the same spot, but with all of my items and the stuff that I had collected. And gave that back to me so that I was in exactly the same spot with the same amount of time on the playthrough, and everything was the same.
Wow.
So that guy's a beast. I think a couple of things might have got messed up, but for the most part, he preserved it exactly. So, anyways, that happened, and then on several of the episodes, my recording, either the game footage didn't record, but I had recorded my audio for like 2 hours. Or the reverse happened where I recorded the game, but I didn't record my voice.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to like do post commentary over the top of it, and it was annoying. It was taking way too much time. I didn't want to do it ever again. But he says if you had infinite time and resources, or in a hard drive that wouldn't crash and lose your saves, to make a canonical walkthrough guide of a game, which game would you choose? Which game would it be? If I wanted to do an LP of any game other than Final Fantasy VII, since I did that one already, probably do The Witcher 3. That's probably the one I would do.
LPs...
Witcher 3 on the hardest mode.
Nice. LPs are... A lot of times people, are expecting like a perfect run of a game, like a 100%, as quick, the most efficient. And I typically don't play games for that. So instead of like a normal LP, I would much rather do like a lore run or something, or like a
blind LP.
Explore everything, or a blind LP. First time you played a game, right? I've been wanting to do one for the Kingdom Hearts series for a while.
Should do it.
But well, I don't.
You shouldn't, because it's sucks to make LPs, but...
Right. I might do it.
Making LPs is a lot of work.
Likely, what I'd rather do is just kind of stream playing the whole game,
Yeah.
And then upload that as an LP, but it's not really an LP, like a thought through, I played the game 50 times, I've got a script, I know what I'm doing. Not that kind of LP.
Yeah. More
an impromptu blind playthrough.
For Kingdom Hearts 1?
Yeah, I wouldn't be blind anymore because I've already played that game a couple times, but... I'd pretend it's blind. It would be comparable to other blind playthroughs. For all of them, all 7 games.
I can't really think of... There aren't many games that I would care enough to do an LP of, to be honest, just because I would just rather play another game or something, or do something blind to like it. But one game that I want to come back to one of these days that I fell in love with forever ago and haven't played since 2004 or 2003 is Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced. I played that when I was living at Mike's house after I graduated from high school, and freaking loved that game. I think that was one of the first games that I actually put like a crap ton of time into. I think I remember checking the game clock, and it was like I'd put 80 some odd hours into it, and I'd never do that before. And so I would like to go back and see if I still like it. Like play a game like I know I loved this at the time, and I want to play it again, because I hear a lot of people kind of who are Tactics fans trash on that game a little bit. So I want to go back and see, like, was it my favorite just because it's the first Tactics game I played, or is it really still that good? Like, I would like to do something like that, but it wouldn't be a great thing for anyone to follow as a walkthrough, because it would just be like, watch me play this game.
Yeah.
Is it still good?
Final Fantasy Tactics, original Tactics, is a close second maybe to what I would want to do as a full walkthrough to Witcher 3, but I was enamored by that game, loved it. Great game.
Well, I think that's the kind of game where it's more important to have a walkthrough. I think it's important.
It's nice to what do I do here? Like, how does this work? Like, it's so
strategic, and you can, like, me and you both fell into this before, of getting to a spot where you're screwed, you're stuck, you can't move forward, and you can't go back.
Yep.
And to avoid that, a walkthrough might be kind of nice, right?
Very useful.
Shout out to all the people that make walkthroughs of really old, obscure games, because like every game has a walkthrough pretty much. You look up game facts.
Warlocked is Parker the only one who did it.
I wonder if anyone else did.
Or was there?
I was just looking at it.
The guy Alex. Alex has made a walkthrough for I don't know how many RPGs. It's unbelievable. Almost any prolific RPG you can think of, you type in there. Alex is the top walkthrough. But
that's funny.
That's hilarious.
Who else made a freaking Warlocked?
And that was a thorough one. Parker was really thorough at that.
Who else made a freaking? What else was he doing? He's trying one other game and he didn't
battle tanks. He did a walkthrough of battle tanks.
Who else did a walkthrough of battle tanks?
Dude, that's hysterical.
I don't know.
The thing to me is that like I feel like doing a text walkthrough document like that would be way more work than just making a video.
It would, but a text document I have found more useful.
Really?
Because you can search for keywords.
That's
you
true.
You can say, where does this thing happen? And you can find in a text document exactly what you're looking for.
That's true. It's easier to find the spot you're at in a text document. However, for me, people are such bad writers that they'll either accidentally say east instead of west, or they will explain the path in such a totally retarded way that like I cannot follow what they're saying. So like I'll read I'll read it and I'll be like, I still have no idea what to do, and I have to go look for a video now. So that's why I generally like videos instead, because I can see how it works.
When I was playing Shin Megami Tensei, the first one, I ended up using a walkthrough for parts of it because that game is so freaking like they don't tell you crap.
Yeah,
and it's one of those games where you move room by room and you just can't see more than a square in front of you.
Right.
And so it's like you're going blind all the time. And so I ended up using that, and I ran into some issues where it's like west of this is this, and I'm like, what is west? I don't really know. I think this is north, but there's nothing where he says this thing should be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's, I don't know.
Usually they refer north, east, and west, and south is just up, down, left, and right.
On the screen,
Those games are tough because you can...
It's like first person, so you can get disoriented.
Yeah. So they would have to actually have...
And the corridors all look the same. Like identical. There's no... It's awful. It was so hard. I tried playing it first without a guide, and then I was like, dude, I'm so screwed here. Like, I can't figure out where to go. And even people like into the series are like, yeah, that one was a little rough. But somebody made a walkthrough, and the people that go to great lengths with these games that are just so obscure, or like, what's the reward for some of these people? Like, not much, right? Like, that guy's name's Alex.
Yeah.
Like
he's beast.
Dude, Alex,
his are good.
His
are good. Yeah. Actually, that's except for Final Fantasy 12 when he was explaining the path through the Great Crystal. Remember the Great Crystal? Did you get that far? To get to Nabudis, not Nabudis. Oh, fetch, the ancient city.
Yeah.
What is it called? Gurvagan?
I can't recall if I actually went there or not.
Did you go?
I was at the freaking
Arcades?
Lab.
The Dracula Laboratory, right?
Yeah.
Did you beat that part?
No, I don't think so. But I was in the underground, that freaking maze where you're just going forever and just fighting a billion enemies back and forth, like switchbacks.
Trying to, like, change
and then
the
finally
door colors.
you get to the place where he's like, we may just meet the very manufacturers of Nethicite.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm at.
That was the point right before you go to Gurvagan.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because that sucked, though, because you can see Gurvagan, and you fight that weird guardian. And you go to the crystal, and it takes you to this crappy underground place that sucks.
This is the part I'm talking about.
Okay, that is where I went.
This is the part I'm talking about.
And I freaking hated it.
Gurvagan...
I got to the part, you fight the boss thing, you go to that thing, and I stopped playing. Yeah. Okay. I got warped down, and then that's when I stopped
playing. Whole path sucks, but it gets worse when you get inside the Great Crystal. It is the most confusing...
That's when I stopped.
Ridiculous. No idea, because you don't have a map. Like in Gurvagan, you pull up the map with select, and you can see the path that you've unlocked. Inside the Great Crystal, there is no map. I think you might have to find it inside of like a chest somewhere or something, where they have little crystals you find. But
usually they put the chest in an obvious spot.
There's no map. You open it up, and it's just like it shows you the Great Crystal as like a backdrop, and it's just like where you are on a level wise towards top or bottom. And oh my goodness, I was trying to navigate it to find the Excalibur because I knew it was in there.
Oh yeah.
And oh my goodness, that even when you have a map, like the guy showed in his freaking walkthrough, I couldn't follow it. And then he's trying to explain the path, and I was like, I'm watching a video on this, and I'm just going to play it on this screen at the same time and walk the exact same path as this guy.
I'm so against like using walkthroughs and guides, but what has happened is I haven't picked up that game in the past 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to do that. And
you're pretty close to the end, though.
Right. I am.
Yeah.
I want to keep going. I would love to, and it's still very fresh in my mind. I know exactly where I was.
Here's the problem,
and I know exactly what happened leading up to it. But I don't want to do that. But if I just, get over it and watch a walkthrough for that part just to get past it, I would actually be able to continue the game.
Play
but
that
here's,
part for you.
Right? Here's the problem: is that
I'm a very high level.
This dungeon, this Gyrovagan dungeon, is arduous and hard to get through and annoying. But there's one more after that that's even worse. It's 100 floors, a tower, and it is so stupid.
Oh, however, the other tower from right before you go to Gyrovagan, where you're going up and down the elevator,
the Dracula Laboratory,
it's like 5 or 6 because a lot of floors are broken. Yeah. But that was actually kind of cool. I really liked that.
I liked
that was
the
fun.
Dracula Laboratory.
That reminded me a little bit of Shinra Tower.
Yeah. Because it's like 5 levels.
Yeah.
It's not 100.
It's not 100.
It's not.
You're freaking
And it's not
me,
obscured so that you can't tell where you are and where you're going. And
what is the tower in Final Fantasy VI?
The magic tower. I know what you're talking about.
How many levels did that thing?
It's a lot.
I've tried. It's like 50.
I can't remember.
It's a lot.
I don't think it's 100.
Now that one, I remember not bugging me as bad as say this one in Final Fantasy 12 or like Final Fantasy 2's Final Dungeon. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But because there's no save points in Final Fantasy 2, it's like you just go through this fetching whole thing in one go, and it sucks because the encounter rate's like every 2 steps another battle, and it has the worst encounter rate in any Final Fantasy game for a fetching fact. But at least in Final Fantasy 12 or in 6, they give you some save points, and you can stop for a while. But I did not.
That always bugged me in 12 when you come up and it's you think it's a save point.
Yeah,
and
then it's a freaking
and you're like,
mimic crystal or whatever.
That is the worst. Those should not be in that game.
But the Pharaoh's Ascent, it has 3 different ascents, but it's 100 floors. It's not actually 100 floors. You don't actually some of them. It's just like you go up the stairs, then up the stairs, and so you went up 2 floors or whatever.
Okay,
you know what I mean? But it's still a lot. And
I hate it when games do that. It's like
sucks.
you're making this game. It's already a long game.
You're padding the game.
Exactly.
That's already
You're just
long.
making it arduous and tedious and less fun.
Yeah, it's just not fun to do.
Jeez, that game was so cool.
But it's symbolic. It's 100 floors. Got to get that symbolism. 100, dude. You went through 100 floors to get here.
Anyways, I may just pick up a walkthrough and actually finish that game.
I still love Final Fantasy 12. I think I've thought about it a lot, and I've played it twice now. I beat it again just this last week. And, I don't like to choose a favorite or, rank them necessarily like that, but I put them in kind of like tiers. There's 4 tiers of Final Fantasy.
These are the great ones, right?
My favorite,
the elite.
The elite tier for me is 4,
which ones are elite?
6, 7, and 9. Those are the examples of I think the best that the series has to offer. And 12 is knocking on the door for me. It's stuff like this and lack of character development for certain characters, and the story goes off the rails a bit towards the end in ways that really kind of didn't get all the way there for me. But I would put it at number 5 above Final Fantasy X.
So
even though it's a top 5 for me. But even though Final Fantasy X does a lot of other things better, I think that the plot, the narrative of 10 is better. The idea for the story is better. But the delivery of dialogue and writing and that sort of thing is so much better in 12 that I enjoy it more. Almost, I enjoy consuming or experiencing the story of 12 more than 10 because of the presentational aspects. And for that reason alone, even though I think 10 has a better story with a better cast of characters, even I don't know. I think that 12 just barely nudges it for me. So I love Final Fantasy 12, but there are some problems with this game for sure. Okay.
Well, walkthroughs.
Oh yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
I think we're done.
I think we're done for this week.
You.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you again on Monday for a new video. And there'll be another podcast next week. I probably won't be on it. I don't know. Maybe I can do it remotely over my phone. We'll see.
Have a Skype from the dashboard or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Or you can do what I did that one time and just record a video and just
kick it over.
And just send it. That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, see you guys then. Thanks for joining us. If you want to watch our video, if you're listening to this audio only, I have no idea how many of you are listening to this on a podcast audio format, like on iTunes or something. You can watch our videos at YouTube. Just search Dark Pixel Gaming. Get our game analysis and filmmaking at just Dark Pixel.
Yep.
I keep saying this every week. There's going to be a new video on the Dark Pixel channel.
Sometime this month.
Sometime in June. Just keep watching for it. It'll come out eventually.
Yeah.
It's done. We made it.
It's done. Waiting.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.